All right, folks. Welcome to What Are the Odds with Barnes and Baris. One half Rich Baris, the People's Pundit. Barnes will be joining us here in just a short moment. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. The link below is the best place to follow us, as always. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. The links for Barnes to sportspicks.locals.com are in the description below. Okay. Yesterday, obviously, the big news of the day was everybody gathering to celebrate Charlie Kirk's legacy and life. And we saw basically everybody come together and the media's reaction to this. And so Robert and I thought that it would be best to do something that is similar fashion, but from our point of view, which is to try to tell you guys how important of a figure Charlie Kirk was and still is, and likely is still going to be in so much of what Robert and I have talked about over the years. And while we wait for Robert, I just want to tell you guys a little bit of a story that I was reminiscing with Jack Posobiec and Andrew Clovet about. And that was going into the 22 and 24 elections. All right. Obviously, I've been a pollster here since like 2016 publicly, but a lot of people thought this was like a fluke. Like, I don't know, this new guy. And he did have an election model in 14 and we outperformed everybody else. But a lot of people thought it was basically a fluke, and now let's see if he does it again. And we did, and so on and so forth. And I knew Charlie for a while, but like really 6 years or so ago, Charlie and I really started to like become, I don't know how to put this other than like kindred intellectual spirits on what the best thing for the Republican Party would be. And he flat out told me, he was like, this, I don't understand why anyone on our side would ever listen to anybody other than you again. So he made it, and he did it, man. He was a man of his word. He followed through on it. He made it his issue to constantly have me on and you've probably heard dozens of stories like this about Charlie, but he made it a priority, like to get me in front of, and our work in front of everybody. And so everybody understood, like, if you want to know what's going on with MAGA, you have to listen to this guy. And he told that to everybody. Some of you may have heard me tell a story about the vice president. At that time, he was not the vice president. He wasn't even a senator yet. And he was a little bit panicked over his poll. That's how I got to know, like really know JD, was through Barnes and Charlie Kirk. And it was, I'll remember, it was like, people are telling me I got to go talk to this guy about how it's going to be in Ohio, and Barnes, and who just popped in now, I'll bring him in. It's like telling JD and others, you got to go talk to the People's Pundit. If you want to know what the hell your state is doing, you have to go talk to the People's Pundit. And he goes to Charlie, he's talking to Charlie Kirk, and Charlie's like, you haven't talked to Rich Baris yet? Like, the hell with your pollster. You haven't talked to Rich Baris yet? So this guy calls him like what is now the eve of his election. I mean, Barnes, you remember this? It's the eve of his election, basically. The weekend is left, and they're telling him it's like razor thin. And Charlie said, you got to go ask the People's Pundit. So JD Vance is like, dude, are you pulling my race by any chance? And I'm like, yeah, here we go. I'm like, oh, now you want to know, JD? So I'm busting his chops a little bit, But I said, I'll tell you what, we love you over here, man. Our fans love you, I'll get in the field and I'll do it. And Charlie convinced me to do it. Charlie was like, he was like, Rich, we both know he's going to win, but he doesn't know he's going to win. Do me a favor, And I was like, all right, Charlie. And he's like, and I'll run the poll. Charlie just wanted to get our stuff out to everybody. And he wanted everyone to know that we were the best at this job. And by the way, JD, that poll was flawless. You won by the exact margin. I told you were going to win, brother. So yeah, I thought, and I was telling people what we're going to do here today, Robert, like tell people these things and how important Charlie was And, you know, this gap that he's leaving is a big gap. It's significant. However, Sunday showed that he's already rallying the troops, even still. He's still rallying the troops, even in death, which I have some clips I want to actually play, which I have been, you know, Robert, you and I talked about this a lot. Like, I'm thinking going into this election, I'm thinking Elon spent millions to put in our idea into practice, right? Charlie never doubted anything. He was like, look, anything we told him, like, Charlie, things are different now. You have helped, and he did. It was a huge force in this, in making this a populist party, a populist right-wing party. There is a price that comes with that. Your coalition's much bigger, but they don't vote as much as these other people that you're going to be trading. He understood that in a way that I feel like I'm slamming my head against a wall trying to explain this to people over and over again. It's like the same thing every show. Not Charlie. He understood it. And he said, you know what? Republican Party's never going to do this. What do I got to do, Rich? What do we got to do? And he did it. And look at Arizona. If you think Turning Point wasn't a huge role in Trump's 6-point margin in Arizona, I mean, a lot of this stuff was happening, Robert. But, you know, I mean, he convinced the Nevada Republican Party to listen and do what we said. Wisconsin was a nail biter. He gave like, obviously was much more focused in Arizona, but we were focusing with 10X in Michigan. Elon was doing Pennsylvania, and so was people like Pressler and others. Charlie was lending his help in all these different areas and where he could. It was just Turning Point and 10X with a small presence in Wisconsin. Like, that's it. So I'm over here thinking Trump and Elon aren't getting along. Charlie's gone. They literally removed one of the most effective people in this movement. This is a real problem. And then Sunday, I mean, can I just play well, first I'll give you I'll give you your opening thoughts, but like I have some videos that honestly gave me like a little bit of hope here. It did, more than a little bit of hope, but I'll shut up and I'll let you, get your initial thoughts in here.
Yeah, I think, the aptly named Turning Point organization that Charlie founded was a turning point at multiple levels. It was a turning point in terms of domestic politics, in terms of domestic cultural conversation, in terms of generational life choices. I mean, you started to see a shift amongst millennials and Zoomers, not only politically, but culturally and socially, to a different set of values, and particularly to returning to family, church, community, the patriotism, being concerned about your community, but being engaged with it in the most productive possible manner. So there's all those attributes of Charlie as an individual who helped revolutionize and turn the tide in American society back towards its more traditional orientation. But also, he was the person bridging the gap, as you point out, from the old establishment Republican Party to a new populist Republican Party. Thus he promoted the populist part of Trump's message and populist messages to Trump, even when Trump wasn't fully on board yet. Brought in and incorporated and heavily pushed for J.D. Vance to be on the top of to be with President Trump at the top of the ticket, creating a successor regime. There are many of us who believe that after J.D. Vance, that next person was actually going to be Charlie Kirk himself. I think would have happened. But basically, that was the second level. The first turning point was cultural. The second turning point was political. The third turning point, I think, is going to be a combination. The third turning point was leading to 2024. That the MAGA MAHA coalition, where we've been only able to talk about it indirectly, didn't want to necessarily get into certain details,
right?
While some other people have frankly gone around pretending they had a lot more to do with it than they did. Not to point out Roger Stone or some other people, but for those that don't know, without Charlie, the MAGA MAHA coalition may never happen.
Yeah.
Without Charlie, the Trump Kennedy coalition might never happen.
Yes.
And what does that mean? It means without Charlie, Trump 2024 may never happen. That's how consequential he was. I think I think we said going in, and I think 50 years from now, looking back, 2024 will be seen as a critical turning point, realigning election. Now, what happens between now and going forward will have a shape on how much it ultimately delivers on that. but it has the absolute capacity to do so. And that is only possible because I want to give every support to everybody that supported 1776 Law Center. We came up in the summer with the idea to do a survey because it was clear that the MAHA coalition was a natural one, but that people in this campaign decision power were not appreciating that fact. So we got together the funds. Richard did the poll at cost. We did the Four Freedoms poll for those that might not have been around during the summer of 2024 last year. And what that showed was the incredible popularity. We'll get into it a little bit later on the show, but the popularity of food freedom and medical freedom and financial freedom. It was after that point that Trump suddenly it embraces crypto fully, talks about pardoning Ross Ulbricht, goes to the Libertarian Party National Convention, which most people thought he wouldn't go to. It's after that he starts talking to Robert Kennedy, that he decides to bring Robert Kennedy in, bring Tulsi Gabbard in. All of that key, the last missing piece to a lasting populist coalition was that Robert Kennedy, Tulsi Gabbard, MAHA coalition against the surveillance state. And this data was essential to motivating people in Trump world and as well as Kennedy world to realize the power of this coalition. And while both of us had friends in both camps, the best person to get this message to them was always Charlie Kirk.
Yep.
Because there was no better intermediary. I mean, he was like the diplomat of diplomat for Republican coalition building. In part is because Charlie's probably the only person I've ever argued with offline that I would feel guilty by the fact that I argued with him afterwards. Because he was that nice of a guy, that gentle of a guy, that generous of a guy. You could say the worst things about him, and he'd come back with something that just made you feel really bad. He was like, I was an asshole today. Positive. He is the best of evangelicals.
Yes, he really was.
Yeah, so I was on Sky News and I said he was the best of America. And I got somebody wrote back to me, well, I like Charlie Kirk, but I don't know how he's the best of America. I was like, well, think about what America should be. It should be entrepreneurial. It should be creative. It should be religious. It should be family. It should be community. It should be tradition. It should be labor, the value of labor for its own sake. Charlie exemplified all this. This guy built an organization from scratch out of his garage as a teenager. You don't get more American than that, and the best of American than that. You know, he marries Miss Arizona. The third kid on the way. I mean, happy, healthy family life. Lived his beliefs. He didn't just, preach at people. He lived his evangelical belief. You can watch his interactions with people, that he was generous and gentle with people that come up and say the nastiest and meanest things to him. So he was always the perfect intermediary, and he understood, and he was constantly curious. I mean, I watched him by the time he started coming up at 18. I think I was on his show maybe a dozen times or so. So I think you knew him better than I did. But I knew him well enough just to know what an exceptional human being he was.
Such a nice guy. And Rob, such a nice guy. Laura and I were remembering this over the weekend. Charlie observed, and I don't know how he did this because he was so busy. He was such a hard worker, and I can't tell you guys. Like I'm glad Robert brought that up because I really want to find time to fit this in. That this was a bright young man, a very smart young man, but also a very nice man, like the best, like Robert just said, the best. He's a better Christian than me, hands down, because I try, but I'm with Trump 100%.
I thought Tucker's great. He said, I got a little hate thing in my heart. Charlie didn't have any hate in his heart.
He didn't have that.
I think mine's a little bigger than Tucker's. I think there's some people, but not in Charlie's world. It was not a surprise. His wife Erica talked about forgiveness.
Yes.
They were the best of the Christian tradition, which is the best of what America represents in many respects: entrepreneurialism, creativity, dialogue, discussion, free speech, free thought. All of that rooted in religious conservatism, rooted in the family, rooted in the community that he understood. And that's why, because he took the data, polling data, along with David Sachs and other people, got it to the tech guys, got it to the health people, got it to the Trump people, got it into the Kennedy world. They realized, okay, this is a no-brainer. And that's why that happened. The most powerful coalition in modern American political history happened largely because of, or at a minimum, the indispensable party to it was Charlie Kirk. Because otherwise, we could have been screaming to her, blue in the face, and maybe we get through, but often maybe we didn't.
Yeah.
It was impossible to shut the door on Charlie Kirk for
You
anybody.
can't. You couldn't if you. That's right. And I remember going over. I basically clipped a video because for people who don't know this, I guess there's no reason for you to, but especially during election times, guys, like Charlie, the text messaging with Charlie is like nonstop. Never, and like this kid worked, and the video when we went over some of the from the Four Freedoms poll, but really the 4% factor, like upwards of 4% in these, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but we were really trying to drill down on a realistic number. If you can marry MAHA and MAGA, how much of Kennedy's only vote in like Michigan, how much are we talking about here? And I honestly, I'm telling you, I'll take it to my own grave that I believe Trump won Michigan by a larger margin than he won Wisconsin, and he outperformed there because of the marriage of the MAHA and the MAGA movement, 100%. And then also, just winning some of these neighborhoods in Dearborn Heights and in other words, with like a message where the Tulsi Gabbard was, look, you have to be open on these messages and understand, that your role as a peacemaker is you have to leverage this much more. You will win other voters that you just would never ever consider. And he did. And so when I would tell, like taking this data and going to Charlie, he got it, man. Like he got it. And he then knew how to convey this to people. Like, look, you have to take this seriously. If you make this happen, you'll be a tremendous force. And by the way, this picture right here is from a Turning Point event, guys. And I know I'm just kind of superimposing it over Robert and I right now, but this is when RFK comes out and it happens the moment it happens. And that was a Turning Point event. And by the way, backstage, for people who don't know, backstage, Charlie was just like, this is it. This is the moment. This is it. So like he knew it. He understood the significance of it. And he was just played such a central role in this and so many other things. Like you brought up before is the entrepreneurial spirit, all of that, like what America should be. This was a man who as a kid, child to me, I'm older than him, but chased down Foster Friess, who was your very traditional kind of like conservative Republican donor, and said, I have an idea, Mr. Friess, I have an idea. And he got this guy to invest in this idea. And it's funny because what is so important about Charlie's own transformation is the transformation of the Republican Party. He himself started as your very, traditional conservative evangelical wing of the Republican Party, which was George Bush's base, guys, back in the day. That was Bush's base that ultimately did abandon him after the economic crisis. But, Charlie was part of that wing. And so his change into being MAGA was just so huge. And while he always tried to, because he was like a diplomat, like Robert said, he's always trying to play nice, but very few people understood in the primary for the 2024 Republican presidential election, Charlie understood what that was with Ron DeSantis. That was an attempt by that wing of the party to take back the party again. Like, I know Ron is, I'm sure he had his own ideas about why he should run. And I know what happened there. I know the backstory there, but that was the consultant class that has a foothold in that community attempting to take back the Republican Party. And I'll never forget the conversation. Like, this has no chance, Charlie. This has absolute, because it was just a matter of numbers. He's a bright guy. And it was just a matter of numbers. Like, the party has already evolved too much. It's not going back. There aren't enough old school, silk stocking, educated, kind of Ted Cruz supporting evangelicals like that. There aren't enough of them anymore. There are all of these cultural evangelicals that Charlie, and younger, by the way, that Charlie and others, but certainly Charlie had such a huge hand in bringing into the party. The numbers were never going to be there for anybody else, and then of course you did the Nikki Haley thing, obviously that just never had a shot. And Charlie's change from, being that CPAC kind of conservative to being Turning Point and building something totally different. And I'll never forget after the 20 election, Robert, we get asked to go to CPAC, right? CPAC is kind of I'm not putting anybody down. It's just, it's got a lot of old energy, guys. It doesn't have the energy that Charlie's events had. And when Laura and I went to Tampa, Charlie had me come speak at the Turning Point event. This was huge energy. I mean, just, you could feel it. And that was so many years ago, you know, and you could still feel it then, which is why I only ever went to those events, guys. Kind of like, as a pollster, I want to know, is there something like I'm missing? Or if I see something, is it real? And like, you can kind of feel it. The left used to be much better at doing this, but they can't harness that like they used to anymore. And Charlie's event was just completely different. Completely. It was the real deal. It was the real deal. You know, I mean, that's,
well, I mean, you see how sophisticated they are. In 7 days, they put on the biggest funeral memorial in the history of America.
huge. Absolutely.
I mean, while they're all experiencing the trauma and tragedy of their friend's public murder. I mean, that shows you the skill set. That shows you the dedication. That shows you the principle. The other great utility of Charlie is he's the easiest example to give. You have a son, a grandson, a niece, anybody. You can say, be like Charlie. Like, be honest with you, I couldn't always say be like Trump. Right?
Yeah.
You probably don't necessarily want him to be like Trump.
Don't be like me either.
Yeah. Or there's places be like me, other places maybe not. But Charlie, you have zero risk there saying be like Charlie. So he was an extraordinary. I mean, he achieved everything, frankly, he set out to achieve, and there was more for him to get done.
Yeah.
But he put that into motion. So his life was an extraordinary example. I mean, to me, it's the most significant assassination outside of Martin Luther King of a non-political official in the history of our country. Me too. I think he will go down that way. And I think a lot of the left and others, as we transition into how Charlie's life can be how his life and his murder can be a turning point of its own kind. That you really couldn't kill the spirit of someone like Charlie Kirk, and killing the man only unleashed the spirit of Charlie Kirk on the rest of the country. And you see that in the people who went. You see, I mean, people that had tuned out the church altogether. And as we can both say, often for justifiable reasons, and how the leadership and hierarchy of these organizations have failed to deliver to ordinary. Which
he also understood.
He understood that entirely. I mean, he really was the best. I mean, I grew up deeply embedded in the evangelical culture. And he was the best of it. I used to tell people, if I had doubts about being an evangelical, I could just look at Charlie Kirk. I mean, Charlie showed, okay, that's what evangelicalism can be. It doesn't have to be some of the bad things that we grew up with, the abusive power of some of those people. Well, other people would leverage their evangelical church tradition to try to coerce people into supporting, say, a foreign country's wars that are ill-advised at the moment. Charlie would just say geopolitical realism. If it's in America's interest, yes. If it's not, no. And he was willing to do that no matter what the issue was. Some of his biggest donors, big Israeli donors, that didn't want him to ever question Israel. And he was a strong advocate of Israel. And all the allegations of an assassination tied to Israel are nuts. And
I mean, some of these people are going off the walls crazy, Robert.
When Nick Fuentes is telling you it's crazy, then you can definitely agree that it's crazy.
She's nuts, bro. Let's just get real with it. She's crazy. I mean, that woman
has been crazy for a while,
bro. She is
between Charlie and her, right? She's on her own race grift. Charlie was consistent. Is it in America's best interest or not? And if he thought it wasn't, he didn't mind saying so. And he didn't mind if huge donors got mad at him. And that's when donors got mad at him for bringing Tucker Carlson in. He said, now I'm going to invite Tucker Carlson.
That's who
he was. He was unafraid. But stayed positive. To see this, I mean, that was, people described it as a revival. I mean, Viva, who's Jewish, was very impressed. He was like, he goes, when I go to events like the Charlie Kirk event, I almost want to start being, Jews for Jesus and convert them. That was the positive power. That wasn't a negative event. That could have easily been a negative event. You can go, I mean, we've seen you go back, watch some of the famous funerals, civil rights funerals, and you can, at times, people, if it wasn't for King, when King wasn't around, things got off the rails. You'd see people get up and say, enough of this, white man this, you didn't hear any of that, because that was the spirit of Charlie Kirk that was unleashed on the country. And it's a spirit of free speech. It's a spirit of generosity. It's a spirit of idealism. It's a spirit of generosity. It's a spirit of universalism. He didn't recognize racial or religious barriers. That's why he opposed DEI, because he thought all this, the incredible amounts of libeling, little word of the wise Elon Omar and some others out there, Turning Point itself can bring a libel action for your libels of Charlie Kirk. So some people out there may think, oh, he's deceased. And in a lot of law in America, in different states where defamation law is set, you can't sue after a person is deceased. There's a difference unless the damage is being done to the organization that person signified. The organization can then sue for defamation and libel.
Oh, and, do that.
Exactly. So there's a lot of places to go. That. But their whole focus was positive. I mean, it was, people described it as a revival moment. And it was like a revival of restoring America's interest in being American, America's interest in our religious values, our business values, our freedom ideas and ideals. So I think it could be a turning point there. And to the critical question that I'm glad that we got that everybody came and funded it. We've got to get our arms wrapped around how severe, how deep, what is the political violence problem? How much do we feel how can we isolate it? How can we identify it? How can we see what are some of the triggers for it? Because the left took over the political violence sociological culture in terms of the academy and think tanks and et cetera. What they've done is they've spent the last 10 years pretending there is no left-wing violence, making up fake studies, making up fake polls, making up fake surveys, trying to pretend there's right-wing violence. By the way, they started doing this after a survey came out, a study did, that showed that if you believe the other party is really violent, it increases your own propensity towards violence. As soon as that happens, all of a sudden you see bombardments of studies saying the right is really dangerous and violent. Hey, left, the right is really dangerous and violent. Hey, left, the right. Why? Because they want them so scared and terrified that they think in the name of self-defense, they have to go out and murder people.
They can do this. This is what I think I'm at the end of my rope with how I am going to be like speaking to media people publicly, whether it's like, in person, face to face, or engaging with them online. I hope Erica and Turning Point sue, because I guess it's because when you know someone personally and what, like, everything you just said about Charlie is true, how good and generous, and not just Charlie, by the way, there's so many people over at Turning Point and his family. And I have a clip from Trump I'm going to play about. I'm glad his family, I'm glad the president said what he said about Charlie's family. Even just this weekend, guys, to give you an idea, like, I was being torn up. I had some personal stuff that was going on. I very much wanted, of course, to be there. They invited me. There's like, of course, the invite for people. And then, but you may not want to be in the crowd with other people, thousands of other people. If you're someone like me or Robert, it may not be the smartest thing to do anymore. So, I mean, I would have been able to have time with people that I think we all wanted to be together and mourn, but I had some other stuff, it's family stuff, and I was like praying on it, and I'm telling you, Charlie would have said, why is this a decision, Rich? You have to stay home with your family. Like, I probably would have said that. And as they're busy, as they're doing all this other stuff, Saturday I get a call letting me off the hook. Like, we know your heart, we know, and it was like, who does this? What kind of a good person do these people, like, how good of people do they have to be to think about me struggling over whether or not I should get on the plane or not, or whether I need to stay with my family and be with my family? Who thinks about that stuff, Robert, in their time? It struck me. And I don't know why I was struggling as much. Well, of course I know why, but I know he would have said that. I know he would have. What do you mean? You have got to stay that, you're a dad. You're a dad. And end of story. What are we talking about? And just to give you another little story I was going to tell people before, is the constant texts through election time and everything. But he observed a different day as a Sabbath. It wasn't Sunday. He observed like the biblical day where he would try to tune it out and turn it off. And I would always say, I don't know how you do that. As busy as you are, I can't. I'm constantly in this world, this life. There really is no day when you're off, guys. It just doesn't work that way. It's a constant job. It's very difficult on your family. And Laura and I were laughing because during the elections, it gets really crazy. And on the days when I'm supposed to be doing nothing, he would call and he would go, "Why'd you pick this up?" And I'll say, "What's up? Why'd you pick this up? Why are you picking up the phone?" It was a test. It was like, let's see if Rich's phone is off. And it's like, I mean, that's what he would do. He's like, you're right, all right, I'm going. And it's like, don't pick this up. I'm going to call back in 15 minutes, and make sure you don't pick up the phone. I mean, just funny. And so, just such a funny guy, but also he was completely sincere. You have to find time to shut it off. If I can do it, you can do it. We all can do it. And I guess that's what bothers me so much about this. And I didn't know that, Robert. A lot of people think because a deceased person, there's no way to bring some kind of a suit. It bothers me on another level this time, watching these people do this and talk about him like this when they don't know shit. They don't know who he is. They didn't know who he was. And even if they did, you and I both know they're doing this on purpose. All right. It's the same thing with the mass shooting events. They act as the contagion and they inspire these events. And they know they do, and they don't care, Robert. Why? Because a bunch of dead kids are really good for their mission to repeal the Second Amendment. That's why they don't care about Sandy Hook, your children. They don't care. Parkland, your children. They don't care. These are the worst people in our society. And I think it just bothers me so much more when I see them saying these things. I mean, Robert, we didn't even have the celebration of his life on Sunday and his funeral. They were already back at it. Nazi, fascist, racist. And when we all know the data says, if you can get more toward the point Robert just made, folks, if you can get the political other to view to view the opponent as a threat, especially those on the left, by the way, then take action against them. In their minds, it is a justifiable action. It's the same kind of psychology they used on them to, if Trump is really a Hitlerian-like figure, okay, then when you go and fill out 4 absentee ballots that don't belong to you, you're not breaking the law here. You're certainly not morally wrong. You're morally right. You're the heroine in this story. You're the hero, and you're fighting against the evil. Sebastian Gorka and the National Security Council put together this thing of like how many times Democrats have used the word threat. Okay, guys, there is no way you cannot poison the minds of these people if you throw this kind of information in front of them. Without a doubt, you are making sick people, by the way, because we have a mass mental illness problem in this country. You're making sick people feel as if the Charlie Kirks, the Donald Trumps, the me's, the yous, anyone else, we're threats to their personhood. And then they lash out, and they know what they're doing. They do know what they're. So from this point forward, and this is why I'm taking this study so seriously, Robert, because we really do have to get our arms around this a lot more than what the left-wing academics want us to know. But the feds know this. The feds have been telling media outlets for literally decades now, stop talking and covering shootings like that. It's the same kind of pathology on how this all happens. And I just think moving forward, we have to start to, we as a society, at least the first step needs to be that we have to talk to them and hold them accountable. We have to talk to them as if we are holding them accountable. So when Jonathan Karl goes on Twitter like he did yesterday and say, this wasn't a political assassination, this is the insanity. And you have to know it was a political assassination. And furthermore, your fake news outlet and others around you in your space are responsible for it. You are all responsible for it, because at the end of the day, they do this because their policies suck. They don't make people's lives better. So instead, they have to turn Charlie into something he's not. They have to turn Donald Trump into something he's not. They got to turn all their political opponents into something they're not. And it's the only way that they can continue to get support. And it's like, that should not be allowed, Robert. Like, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Like, I don't want to take people's, rights away, but I just don't know what else. Cicero said that a society's laws are a reflection of its values. Well, what the hell are we doing here? We're just allowing people to engage in assassination rhetoric. It's the same way the FBI nudged the nation to kill Malcolm X. They know how to play this book. They know the playbook. I mean, it's been running it for decades. I don't know why we're allowing it. Something has to change.
Well, and I think, that's what we need. Credit to everybody out there who supported the big data public polling project on this, because we need honest data. Because about 20 years ago, I studied a lot of political violence for a range of reasons, and then I've represented people pro bono in the domestic violence context. So between the two, I've read tens of thousands of books, articles, studies, surveys, you name it, over this for the last quarter century plus. And certain, common denominator. But what was striking was, over the last 10 years, the data has all been doctored. That the left took over the academy, took over the think tank, started doing disinformation studies, et cetera, a lot of confession through projection. So if some nut job shot up a synagogue, they would say right-wing violence. And it was like, even though there was nothing right-wing about it, there was no political statement, whatever, it was just a little nut job that just wanted to shoot up somebody someplace. The Las Vegas shooter, identified as right-wing violence. There's nothing about that was identified as politicized at all, least of all to the right. So they started making up data. So, and they were making it up to terrify the people on the left in order to start to get them all jacked up to engage in violence, because the natural human condition is to not do so. There's a deep human disposition against interpersonal violence, against the most severe forms of violence. So that they've been so that's why we need honest data to counteract the fake data. We also need honest data so the decision makers and we as a broader society can figure out what to do. Because when the best of us is murdered in public for the world to witness and see, and some portion of our own public celebrates that murder, we've got a severe cultural problem that could unravel the entire society. Politicized violence could easily get out of control, and it often happens that way. Like, I just as shocking and horrified as I obviously was about the murder of my friend Charlie Kirk, and a very good man, Charlie Kirk, imagine being that accused shooter's parents. Yeah. This kid was relatively normal until like a year ago. Yeah. And he goes off to college, starts the radicalization, but basically over the last year becomes completely batshit insane. All of a sudden doesn't know what gender he is. He's dating someone who says they're a woman when they're a man. Starts getting obsessively political, starts attacking his own family. I had, a niece that started attacking other family members, blocking other family because she's gone. It started with Luigi. That what they've done is first they isolate you. Second, they dehumanize the other, is what Richard was talking about earlier, so that they can get to step 3, which is to radicalize you, for you to accept the most morally horrific things in the name of your purpose. And they usually prey on empathy-driven personalities. Is the deepest irony of this. Like in my own extended friend and family network, the people that have gone the craziest are the most empathetic. And they're the ones that currently show the least amount of empathy because they've taken their purpose and contorted it and distorted it until evil is now presented as the good and the good is now presented as evil. And we got to figure out, how are they doing it? What is the triggers? What are ways to identify them? What are ways to spot them? In the end, the Biden administration has been and the Democrats have been on a decade-long confession through projection. They told you what all of their own crimes were. They just told you it was Donald Trump's crimes. Yep. But it was, in fact, the Biden family almost to a T that they were describing. And then if you think about it, during the Biden administration, they were really telling you we have a dangerous political violence problem in part of our culture, because they said that there's a subgroup that's being radicalized online that is using it for the purposes of political violent purposes that we need to use all state and federal legal resources to shut down. Except they were just pretending it was on the right. Everything they said was happening. It was just on the left. And it was happening on Discord, happening on Reddit, happening on then Twitter, now on Blue Sky, happening on Facebook, etc. I had a family member, if they had any level of sensitivity, they would have known not to respond to a particular person's post because of things that person had also personally experienced. And they were one of the most empathetic people in our family. And yet they did, because they've become nuts. They become totally insane. They've isolated these people. They get them to block people, stick in a bubble, don't listen to other people. This was part of the whole culture of, to talk to a fascist makes you a fascist, all that kind of nonsense. Isolation, part 1. Dehumanization and exaggeration of the other. The other is not human. And not only are they not human, they're bad, they're evil, they are threatening you.
They're a threat to you.
So that you get to step 3, which is radicalization. Imagine, if you're a normal middle-class Mormon family in middle Utah, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and you thought your son was acting a little weird and involved in some weird relationships and had been weird politically for 6 months, and you discover he has just effectively ended his life by murdering someone. I mean, imagine the shock that has to be. I mean, on that side. I don't. It would be really tough to be the father who had to turn his own son in, the mother who had to report. I mean, so that's how successful this system has been.
Yeah.
And credit to Chase Hughes, our good buddy Chase Hughes, who put out a thing saying, look, everything that's happening, if you are a part of, now he didn't say the left because he's trying to reach everybody but that's a more effective way to reach the left at this point, I think.
Yeah, you can't talk to them like it's them. Yeah, you can't.
Exactly. You act like, oh, it's the other people. They're like, oh, yeah. Well, I'll make sure to be careful of that. But I've seen a bunch of left people who have said, you know what, this is scary, right? What Chase was talking about, which is, if you think about MK Ultra, what would have been a better target point for MK Ultra than the potential trans community? People that have, like, I was struck. I was starting to do, I was going to send some research for the show, and because I was in the domestic violence work representing victims for a quarter century, almost all pro bono work, but for all across the world, the number one group that was you had to figure out red flags, and when you were advising a client, okay, and you had to figure out which psychological things meant, okay, this meant that your biggest talkers, not your biggest doers. The people that don't talk might be the most dangerous.
Here's the ones you got to worry about. Yeah,
like this kid, right? I mean, he wasn't a big talker. Those some of the words. Certain relationships with fire and space and all these things. You figure out who is the most likely to have escalatory violent risk. Number one by far of big red flag of escalatory violent risk was anything to do with trans. Yeah. If they were trans, they were involved with trans, if they ever thought about being trans, the violence risk went from 20% to 80%. This was all throughout the data, by the way. They hide it these days as they say these are the trans victims. Trans are often victimized. They won't tell you.
That's how the FBI is doing it right now. That's how they did it with it's a domestic violence study. And what they're trying to say is, if you're trans, you're a particular risk of being a victim in a relationship of domestic violence. What you're really saying is trans relationships are violent, way more violent than non-trans relationship, and it's not even close. I think we did that study, and inside the numbers, it's like it's like 80% more likely. It's huge.
Over their lifetime, there's an 80% chance that someone is involved in a trans relationship is either going to be a victim or a victimizer.
Inside the numbers, you know this. We went over
that's a rate 4 to 5 times higher, sometimes 10 times higher. Almost all the trans convicts are people who are there for sex crimes more often than not. And then they were putting them in women's prisons, which is just insane at another level. But whatever happens in the brain that makes somebody think, I don't know what gender I am, or I should be associated with someone who doesn't know what gender they are in my own intimate relationship, another part of their brain drops the barrier on violence. I don't know why it is. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it for 25 years. I've read all the studies and data. I lived it as a young lawyer, that anytime somebody said they're involved with trans, like huge risk. I mean, like on the lesbian side, it was the butch lesbian, not the bi lesbian. And it was bisexual lesbians, low level of violence. Butch lesbians who have a certain sociological and psychological overlap with trans, violence would go up 4-fold. It's just when you get into the trans world, it's 10-fold. And so we got to figure out, like I was thinking for your question, I think for your questionnaire, I think add questions about sexuality, gender identity.
I need some help here with this. I'm struggling over, I have questions that you would think to ask, but this is what I need suggestions with, Robert. Like, what are we trying? Like, what are these triggers or red flags? Like, what kind of questions can we design? So you're saying, like, what about sexuality? Like, give me just like a generic example. Like, I don't know. Whether or not somebody thinks they're like so should I add a binary question or?
Yeah, I think identity questions, how people respond to that. Some Antifa type questions, basically. But that goes to their substantive theories and points. In other words, figure out some of the lingo and language they use to describe themselves and to justify and defend themselves. But that would sound crazy to most normies. And I think some of those, what we'll find. I was intrigued by lifestyle question. And this was sort of like, it's another Charlie Kirk derived question, which, and Charlie, by the way, was the one pointing out the assassination culture was coming. He pointed that out in April. He said, look at this data.
We had this conversation.
Yes,
we did. Charlie and I had a conversation about this when that study came out. And I said, actually, Charlie, we've done some stuff like this in the past. And then that's when we got into, I mean, we had conversations much like the ones we're just having now. Like, it's the same way you get somebody to feel like they can, how the left outsourced voter fraud in 20. It's the same thing. You're saying these people are a threat to you. So taking these actions that otherwise would be viewed as wrong is not wrong because you're actually under threat. And if you don't do, it's like a self-defense. I'm not breaking the law to break the law because I'm doing it. I'm acting in self-defense by filling out 4 ballots. I'm acting in self-defense by killing Charlie Kirk. Same thing.
That was their logic. And to give people an idea out there, but there's one key component, well, there's many components, but one interesting component that unites Antifa and the Ku Klux Klan. Both of them were founded saying that they were self-defense organizations.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was a complete lie, but that's the logic that they built in. Is that oh no, I'm defending myself by this act of violence, by this dangerous act towards the community more broadly, and we need to figure out what are the triggers for that. What are the associated beliefs? What are the other things being taught? And the goal is to use this study to figure out, one, how big is the problem? Maybe it's really big, maybe it's small, maybe it's somewhere in between, but we need honest data because we have so much. There's ways you can do the polling on this, as Richard has talked about, where you can either get a very exaggerated response one way or the other, depending on how you frame it and phrase it. So we need to couch it in such a way that we're getting the accurate data. We're really teasing out that person's opinion. We're not necessarily getting the disengaged person that's like whatever. There's a range of studies out there that talk about how to survey the question of political permission slips for violence. There's ways to do this that have been done in the past that you have to incorporate. And then we just have to look at the new risk points. We just have new risk points. I think like the other interesting thing was if you considered your ideal life to have a family and then you were much more likely to look at politics one way than if you were not. Like, I mean, it was one of the biggest gaps was if you asked a woman, what's your primary goal? I would love to have a good family. That 70% chance they're going to vote conservative or Trump or the like. If they say their number one priority is to have a job that makes them feel good, not labor for its own sake, like not the Amish tradition. Like the Amish, labor is its value. There's no such thing as a bad job because to do good work is itself a good. But not in the left. The left has to have a job that makes you feel good about yourself, that satisfies your power lust in some cases. But if they answered that way, then they were much more. So I think views about sexuality and belief, particularly as it relates to trans, I suspect is going to have some high associations with propensity to tolerate violence, to encourage it, to support it, to subsidize it. Because Richard and I talked about around the world. I mean, we've had it here in the United States with the Klan and Antifa and during the Civil War. And if you want to go back to see how nuts this can get, look at the bloody Kansas for those people that want to study this. Normal people went insane during parts of the Civil War. They had nothing to do with slavery, the Union, the Constitution, articles, had nothing to do with any of it. It was, let's just go crazy and rape my neighbor. I mean, it was that kind of insanity in parts of Kansas and Missouri. This is in the same with the Klan in the 1870s, started as a self-defense organization. Those freed slaves are going to come for us. Well, maybe they should have, but the 1890s, 1920s, 1950s, and we've seen what works and doesn't work. If you get control over the culture, you can quickly suppress the amount of violence that occurs. It was like when they went and blew up that church in Birmingham, and they didn't know there were 4 girls there, but 4 little girls singing in the basement. But they thought they would come home to their communities, and their communities would be cheering them on. And instead, they became anathema in their own communities, and it shocked them. And so what happened? All of a sudden, that violence that was crazy between, say, 1958 and 1968 radically starts to decline. Part of that radical decline happened in part because of the assassination of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy, all back to back to back to back, and parts of the country started to realize something's going wrong here. You could look at how, I call it the Patty Hearst effect. How did this Tyler Robinson, if assuming he's the assassin, how did he become like Patty Hearst? Patty Hearst gets kidnapped, and then she becomes one of the most radical people. You see her with a gun kidnapping people in a bank, right? That process of radicalization, and that includes that step of isolation. Like I think some of the questions can be: have you ever blocked a family member or close friend?
That's what we're doing. That like have you lost a friend? Have you ever blocked a friend? Because I've been looking, guys, from like some of like Robert had his own personal experiences. I do too. I have family members who feel that I helped Donald Trump get elected, and they don't even talk to me anymore. They won't talk to me. I mean, this is insane. These are people. I mean, I'm 43 years old. I'm going to be 44 years old. Some of them are my peers that I like grew up with, family members. Like, you know, we all have cousins and stuff, right? And some of them are my elders, you know, that like knew me as a tiny child running around in freaking diapers. This is not normal behavior, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, it's not. And by the way, with some of those gender questions too, the Williams Institute just released this huge study, which, by the way, absolutely confirms what we have been saying, which is this is like this idea of transgenderism. It's not a legitimate like medical disorder. This is a mental disorder as far as it is a physical medical disorder.
Outside of the tiny percentage of people who are literally biologically intersex.
That's right. The intersex is totally different.
1 in a million people.
Intersex totally different.
You know who got confused with that? Candace Owens. She didn't know there was a difference between intersex treatment and
I know.
Can you believe that? Those were the dumbest lies that she told during the thing. It's like, oh my God, I mean, it's unbelievable. But
hello. But yeah, look, I don't know if you saw this. Let me pop this up. Tom Bevan actually shared this, and I was like, oh, this is on Real Clear Politics. Let me look at this because I wanted to know how they kind of massaged out some of these answers. It's a huge survey, and what it basically shows is Gen Z's psychological frailty is really an issue. But it says their unique vulnerability to social contagion suggested by the explosion of gender confusion. Transgendered identification among young adults surged from 0.59% in 14 to 3.1, basically 3.08 in 23, which is a 422% increase, with non-binary identities up 1,260%. Transgender men quadrupling 309%, which is driven by social media echo chambers and peer pressure. This is the same thing. Again, this is entirely the same thing. I think what we're talking, I think we're going to find out that there is a link because we're not really talking about something different. Like Robert, back in the 90s, you knew these kids, and there were just less of them, but you knew these kids, they were not expressing transgenderism. They were expressing like, oh, I'm a Nazi now. And they'll go out and do like, Columbine or something, right?
The which referencing is the punk movement in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
became punk, like neo, skinheads, and that was their
identity. That was their identity. It's like the lost soul syndrome. It's just whatever it is, what's the fad of the day that can catch these people. And the political left, it appears, has figured out, and again, I know I shouldn't do that, Chase is right, but certain political entities in this country.
There's evidence of a huge psyop, is your point. Whether it's left,
that's what I'm saying. They figured out how to catch them.
We think they targeted the left for a wide range of reasons because that's what we're seeing the evidence of the left.
Yes.
But I think Chase is right. This is evidence of a psyop. And if you can convince people that you don't know what gender they are, you can probably mind control them in ways the MK Ultra Project never imagined possible.
It's such a profound thing to say because I mean this is something that should be so obvious. So if you're psyoped into not even knowing what your own gender is, then what else could you do? I mean, what else? And by the way, the Gallup poll, they've been asking this for years. There is some will argue that all it is there's less of a stigma now. So that's why people are identifying. But that is not what the evidence suggests at all. And not at all. It suggests that it's basically the same reason if you were, during my generation, I can't even use that word because now it's a derogatory word. But if you are a white kid wearing baggy clothing and acting like you're from like Compton, they called you a name, there was a name for it. It's like there's just these different. That's a fad, folks. I mean, it's really it's a simple thing. But what happens here is that some of them, a lot of times, like somebody had wrote a message to me just now saying, and then most of us grow up. Right. But some of us don't. Some of us never find our place. And look at the, speaking of pathology, look at the pathology of the shooter, guys. He comes from this Mormon conservative household. The videos on Facebook from his mother's Facebook page make it out like he was the crown jewel of the family, mommy's little boy, so proud, got a scholarship, right? And I said almost immediately, I was talking to my friend he was raised Mormon. He lives in Atlanta now. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia now, and he's actually an engineer. He's super bright, but he's not practicing Mormon, but he's certainly a Christian. Him and I had a conversation after this happened, Robert, and basically everything he said we were going to find out about this kid came to fruition. And he said, not for nothing, but there is two sides of this. When you're talking about like a Mormon upbringing like that, if he got to Utah State, something started to fall apart, maybe he wasn't doing as well, there is a tendency to make that person feel like they're not part of the family anymore, or they're not part of like the community. They can be very ostracizing, he said. And so he finds comfort with some obscure furry gamer community on Discord. There probably are a couple FBI agents in there nudging people along. And folks, I think you need to prepare yourself for Cash Patel to try to bury all of this, because this is not I'm just saying, I'm not saying they had a role. I'm just saying they look at the Whitmer kidnap situation, guys. That was entrapment. I don't understand how nobody sees the real crime here. The real crime is that we have federal agents trying to get other people to commit crimes. That's the real crime, and it's working, by the way. So, this is a calling card of these agencies, and always has been. They find out who these people are who never did grow up or never did find their place. And what did we learn so far? Obviously, if he was in some kind of Vogue program, Robert, he didn't do well when he got to Utah State. Something happened. And when you hear things like he was never political, except for the last 6 months, he got super political. It's the same thing you'll hear with a lot of homegrown Muslim extremists. The family members will say he was not religious. The hell, he wasn't even a Muslim until 6 months ago. And then he got super religious and he was going to this mosque every day. We hear the same thing. It's the same thing. And it's particular to young men because I think our role is just so it's been attacked. It's been, young men have been neutered. We physically are losing testosterone. Physically, there's a decline in testosterone levels in young American men. I think they just, we don't know that yet. But see, this is the way I'm approaching the study. So this is why I haven't come just flying out with a bunch of cookie cutter questions like YouGov did. They did in their Snap poll. I mean, yeah, we're going to ask some questions like that too, but that's not what I think is. It's not going to benefit us to just do that, Robert, and then move on and then get what we all know I'm going to find, which is that some of us are certainly more likely to justify the use of political violence than others. I think we are all going to know who that is, but why? And what else? I didn't raise this money we didn't raise this money to put out some bullshit poll, Robert. I want to do this right, and go ahead. What do you?
What is the scope of it? We need to know how big is this, how deep it goes, and in order to do that, you need really precise questioning. The second then is what triggers can we find? Affiliations, associations, correspondence, correlated behaviors, correlated attitudes, correlated lifestyles, correlated beliefs. To find what are some of the warning signs, what are some of the triggers, what are some ways to spot and identify this, how big and deep is it, and what is its cause is kind of what we're trying to isolate with accurate data, because all of the data out there has been contaminated by people trying to either inflame or understate the scale of the problem, and their ideological bias is so heavy. That's how you get this ridiculous thing 85% of all violence has been right-wing violence. And it's why can't I name a single left-wing person then that's been murdered by a right-winger in this country in the last 10 years?
Well, Catholics are extremists, are right-wing extremists, according to Joe Biden's Department of Justice. I mean, if you're going to pull stuff like that, then you could fudge the numbers how you want, or sometimes they just misinterpret it. When you actually read the data and what they collected, it's very clear what the conclusion is, but you have these kooks drawing these crazy conclusions, like what we just said, turning the perpetrator into a victim somehow, right? So if you're in a transgender relationship, you're 80% more likely to be a victim of domestic violence. Well, whoa, someone's got to be perpetrating that domestic violence. Hello. And I'm mean, it just lists these things. And by the way, here's another thing. That last sentence right there scared me, because when we think about who, like, these lost souls, I mean, I can think of no more potent a population for these lost souls than this last sentence. What this last sentence tells us: rising detransition rates underscore the era. Tragically, only 13% of detransitioners receive support from LGBT organizations versus 51 when they want them to transition. A shameful abandonment of distressed young people. So in other words, folks, when they fit their political agenda, they give them support. They give them not only support, but affirmation. Like, what you're doing is right. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just trapped in another gender. But the minute these people say, I think I made a mistake, and I think maybe something else was the source of my problem, at the end of the day, I think I may have just mutilated myself for no reason, they abandon them. They can't be bothered with these people anymore. So what is, former Tommy, now calling themselves Tamiris with half a weenie doing with their free time, Robert? I mean, this is like crazy. Think about it. This is a bomb. This is a societal bomb waiting to go off, and nobody has the courage to talk about it because they're afraid of losing a grant or whatever, which is what's so great about the Public Polling Project, by the way. You guys funded that faster than I've seen anything fund since the 2020 election, since the Public Polling Project became a thing. I mean, that thing was funded in a week, Robert. It was like, bam. And it was more than half funded within 2 or 3 days or something. It was incredible. So I just want to do right by it rather than just put, like you said, find out the scope, all of that, because I guess I'm trying to find, and I know I hate saying this, I don't like it when other people say it, but I guess I'm just trying to find some positive spin here, or like something that we can turn into a positive, something that frankly he would like, he would appreciate, would honor him correctly.
Well, I suspect, I think there's going to be big age differences and other things. I suspect there's, like, at least from my extended friend and family circle, older liberal friends were deeply bothered by all of it. They were deeply bothered by the assassination of Charlie Kirk. They were deeply bothered by seeing people they knew on the left.
Me too.
Saying they're like, what? I mean, I had family, other people like this was utterly shocking to them. It was like disassociating to them, and that was the level of shock. So I think we'll find that there are people that and I think what we can do is we can not only get accurate data to figure out. My guess is that I think already just in the response to Charlie, and I think, thank God that Charlie was Charlie, because if it had been somebody else, it might have been a very different reaction based on their personal history. I mean, if they had succeeded in murdering Trump, we were going to be in
I was going to bring that up.
Period.
I was going to bring this up. Like, think about what would have happened, because, and Laura and I were just talking about this late last night. Like, this, what. And I know I don't want to go down this road, but it's like, Charlie was not only a deep believer, but he was actually, for lack of a better term, a good Christian. Some of us try, and we're not.
He was one of the best representatives of Christians I ever knew in my life.
Yeah.
I really grew up around a ton of them.
Trump, on the other hand, is not.
As Trump himself said. Trump was like, Charlie always get mad at me because Charlie was always, bless your enemies. I don't bless my enemies, Charlie. And Charlie's mad at me right now because I'm saying that.
I want to destroy them, every one of them. Right? Yeah, I got that clip. But let me play this, because this is why I think this is a good pivot to going down this road about how, like, even in death, Charlie's rallying the right and making them act, I think, better than they want to, because I don't want to act good. I want to go, Robert, I wanted to go beat the shit out of somebody. I really did. I am instantly reverted to gangster rich. Yeah, like I was like, let's go find these little shits. Cash Patel, I will torture the answers out of them. When I take all his fingernails out of his hands, then believe me, we'll find out who else knew. And by the way, that's got to ask you about that too. By the way, I can't stop the show without asking you why these people aren't in cuffs. I know for a fact, because I've seen some of the evidence. All right, I'm just going to be real with you guys right now. There's more than one who knew about this before it happened. Why aren't they in cuffs? How could they not be charged under a Good Samaritan law, Robert? I got pressured myself, not because of a crime I committed, but because of a crime I knew was going to be committed. And they wanted to lean on me to get information. How are these people not in jail? They murdered Charlie. How? And they didn't say anything. They told nobody. Right. How could they not be in jail, Robert? I don't understand.
I'm hoping it's because we've got a very broad, deep investigation where they've turned a lot of people who are providing information. I hope that's the case. I share your skepticism that it may. Who in the FBI is leaking to NBC claiming there's nothing political here?
That's what I'm saying. You saw the headline.
Should be summarily fired.
What is Cash? Cernovich is right. They did something to Cash. They did something to Dan. And both of these guys look like totally different men. They neutered these men. They look like different men. For those of us who knew these guys before they went into these jobs, they don't look the same. They don't sound the same. They don't say, their eyes aren't the same. And by the way, I was talking with a certain friend in the Defense Department. Even he agrees. He's like, something is wrong. They did. Cerno said they showed him something, and whatever it was, it broke him. You know, like I think he's right. Well, I'm sorry. At this point, I think he's right.
You need people with a unique spine, and Trump proved it. J.D. Vance proved it because he took personal, professional risks to do what he did. Yeah, in ways that kind of Bongino and Cash didn't necessarily have to do.
Did. Yeah.
And then Bobby Kennedy and Tulsi Gabbard, you can't budge them for nothing. I mean, I assume sometime today, we're getting the autism information. They look at that. They went on that great. We predicted it. They failed. They went on a political coup campaign the last 3 weeks to get Bobby Kennedy out. They utterly failed. You could tell, even because of his voice, sometimes people don't know when he's being emotional or not. But at the end, I mean, he was probably one of the most emotional at Charlie's memorial, especially you see it at the end. But he has if anybody understands the risk of politicized violence and how to best respond to it, it's Robert Kennedy. Yeah. He saw his father murdered when he was 14. He saw his uncle murdered when he was 8. Yeah. He's had multiple relatives die. He was subject to all kinds of death threats himself. Like people wondered, why couldn't we? I do think they need to expand security teams, use drones and other things going forward. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of where we're at. I think we're probably going to have to get bulletproof glass as a regular basis and things like that. Though I think one of the great reformations that could take place is we should have a turning point on every high school campus and college campus in America. And some of those big donors, why not create and government and universities can fund this. Hillsdale can do it on its own accord, et cetera. But, what I've called for is a Charlie Kirk public square on every high school and college campus in this country.
What a great idea. And just to remind everybody of what you're supposed to be doing in these places. This is supposed to be the heart of debate and free thought in this country. And it's not irony. It's a sick, twisted, irony. I guess it's not normal irony. It's a twisted irony that he was assassinated by a freaking coward on a university, on a campus
while doing the debate,
while trying to debate and win over hearts and minds.
In the best of America, if you get a little Charlie Kirk statue there with that classic goofy smile of his, which I never got over.
It's great.
I was like, that was one of those. I was like, that's a political acumen. You take something that's a little bit goofy and you make it like people smile whenever they see your smile. I mean, that had a great political skill down the road that he never got the chance to fully develop. But for other people out there watching, Charlie gives you a great roadmap. You want to make a difference, just be like Charlie Kirk. The man may have changed the entire world in 14 years between the ages of 17 and 31.
Unbelievable.
A
lot of life, Robert.
Martin Luther King, one or two other people you can ever say that about.
I was just going to say
political office. I mean, it's just incredible.
And to live that much life in such a short amount of time and to have that much of an impact, it's incredible legacy.
Broad, social, public, but also personal and individual and familial and professional. Really striking. So and that's why, representing figuring out what demons are lurking out there. And the other thing about this, I think some of the questions is, the other thing it dawned on me. Someone pointed this, it might have been Beaver. Somebody else pointed out, he goes, a lot of these people live in an online world where they no longer see human beings. They see avatars.
They see people. I mean, right. Like NPCs. They're like
exactly.
NPCs.
They're NPC. And it's like, at what level, we know how much damage technology has done to this whole generation. I think this has got to be a part of it. How much it being terminally online, how much being stuck in that world allows them to dehumanize, to isolate, to radicalize, to do those things that they couldn't normally achieve, to make the normal abnormal and make the abnormal normal, to make the perverted moral and the moral perverted. Because that's what they've done. They put everything literally on its head. I mean, you couldn't have more on its head than the murder of Charlie Kirk by a guy involved with a trans person who wants to block everybody and thinks murdering because he thinks Charlie is the great threat. Charlie's the very abnormal. Charlie is the evil. Charlie, it was literally the reverse of what was
the complete opposite. The complete opposite. Yeah.
It's MK Ultra on, and we mentioned a version of this on the right that happened. QAnon. Now, it never went as violent as they tried to make it because they were unsuccessful. And I think some of the reasons they were unsuccessful, I think we'll find. Well, I think testing things like faith and community and church and degrees of social isolation, degree of online, you're going to see that people who have friends in real life, people who go to church, people who have certain strong religious values and community ties, refuse to resort to violence overwhelmingly, I think is what we're going to find.
They also don't even find it more. Yeah, God.
Worked at one level, but it never worked at the next level. DC on January 6th was supposed to be like what the Puerto Ricans did. I always love the left. When has anybody on the left ever gone into the Capitol barns? I was like, can you please read a little history? Just a little. Puerto Ricans literally shot it up. They gave them the AK-47.
A militant feminazi group bombed the Senate building. What are you talking about? A left-winger gunned down a congressman from Kentucky in the stairwell. What are you talking about? It's just that you don't hear about it, Robert. They don't. I mean, part of it is...
Because like I was reading one of these things of it's trying to describe Antifa by CBS. They lie about Antifa. Antifa is just a recent group that was, who else we gave the political permission slip for this violence? Every member of the institutional media who pretended Antifa was a civil rights organization.
100%. 100%.
Chris Cuomo did it. Fredo there did it. Don Lemon did it. A whole bunch of them did it. CBS was doing it yesterday. And then they were only including violent events that they could attribute to the right. And they attribute some of them to the right. They weren't to the right. But I was like, where are all the... so did Congressman Scalise, did he get shot? Oh, no, he's not in there. That story doesn't exist. It didn't happen. It's been memory hold by the institutional media. What they've done is they've created this huge... pretended that there's this great threat of violence from the right in order to trigger violence from the left. Disguised as self-defense. And then they hide when that violence occurs from the public. We want to set the record straight by looking at the scale of it, the severity of it, which side it's currently the risk. I believe that right now the data will show it's overwhelmingly from the left.
Yeah. When
people say fascist, I always point out, fascist and Marxist and communist, we're all leftist arguing with each other. They're all statists. And nobody argues with each other worse than the left. I'm going to guillotine you. No, you're going to guillotine. That's the way it goes. Nobody hated each other more than Trotsky and Stalin. Yeah. But they were both commies. Now, Stalin was really just a criminal who just used communism as a way to grab power for his sociopathological paranoia. That's where I think we're going to find that there's some dehumanizing trait by big tech itself. We've seen it in the way it's led, and this self-hatred. This other thing, it induces, I think, some sort of psychological test. We have to be careful, but I know some language out there that we can grab. I think that we can use for this, because it's the technological, like what big tech has done, for those that don't know, is anxiety is up by 5-fold. Self-harm is up by 5-fold amongst young girls. Cutting themselves, trying to kill themselves, things of this nature are way up, way off the charts. A majority of young liberal women describe themselves as having a mental condition. And they're all on every drug known to man. And some of these people, we're all part of a generation like this, the alleged assassin. I don't know whether it happened or not, but he was part of the generation that started getting drugged at the age of 4 when they went to elementary school. And even Head Start programs were drugging. You're too hyperactive. Drug.
Yeah. Between Adderall.
That's the question we should ask. You have the psychological treatment questions, diagnosis questions, medication questions, their approach to some of those issues. because I think we're going to see their relationship to family, their relationship to church, their relationship to religion generally, relationship to God, their relationship to the community, their relationship to technology, and the relationship to medicine will end up having strong correlative ties to who is and isn't prone to violence.
We should do like I don't know, almost like a screen time question or something.
Yeah.
Like, how much time do you spend online? And then, of course, we have to ask where do you get your information from?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we have to do that. Let me play something just as a last minute. Well, it's not even last minute, because before we talk about, like, where they're going to go without Charlie here, I do want to just play something, because I think that everyone on what I was very clearly, it was a joke. Everyone there knew it was a joke. Trump was like, Charlie, you were better. You always said, we want to pray for our enemies, not me. I want to destroy my enemies. That's basically what Trump said. I want the worst for them. And everyone latched onto that, and that was it. But there was another moment, aside from the moment when he brought Erica, by the way, on, which was incredible. I have that clip too, but I just wanted to hear somebody say, what a great job this family did raising this man, and the president is not a he's not one of the history's best consolers in chiefs, right? So we've had, presidents that
in person, he's amazing. Very, very good. He likes but he wants the tough guy role publicly. And so publicly, he doesn't come across that.
Doesn't do that.
Yeah. I feel it. Let me feel a little more. It's not Bill Clinton.
He's the Gary Cooper strong silent type, as Tony Soprano used to say. Okay.
Yes.
And that's just the way he feels like he needs to be viewed. Now, there can be a negative with that sometimes, and that is sometimes the country needs to be consoled. And that's part of the president's job. We talked about the seasick voter in 2020, like Trump not being like, there's constantly the boat is rocking, guys, but the media is rocking the boat most of the time, and the deep state's rocking the boat. But Trump needed to like hold some people's heads and say, it's all right, we're going to get through the storm together, but he didn't. He would be like, stop puking, you freaking pansy, stop puking. It's just a little boat rocking. And that was a problem for some people. They really needed him to be more sympathetic toward the amount of volatility that the country was going through under his presidency. But this was a rare moment of Trump being publicly a consoler in chief. But just also that he recognized this. And I felt like for 9 days, nobody had said, aside from America, what about Charlie's family? And what a great job they did raising this young man. And Trump did. And I just want to play it because I really think he deserves a lot of credit for bringing this up, because the family deserves credit. Robert.
To Charlie's parents who lost their beloved son, and to the entire Kirk family, we know that no words could ever be enough to fill the void he leaves behind. That's a void that just can't be filled. But I hope the extraordinary outpouring of emotion over these past 11 days has comforted you with the knowledge that your son brought more good and love into this world in his 31 short years than most people, even very, very successful people, can bring in a lifetime.
All right, so there it is. And that was perfect. Yeah, that was absolutely perfect. Rare.
I think Trump was personally, and I think Trump, the other good thing is that we have been talking about this now for the better part of a decade, in parts because of we're familiar with the history. We're familiar with how dangerous this can be. We're familiar with how one thought can lead to another thought and how this could cycle very badly out of control. But, I think people in power, I think even Trump, as we've tried to describe, has often thought of this problem as a Trump problem. Yeah. As, they just want to prevent me from getting into office. So they just want to, and not realizing how broadly cultural it was. And I think the murder of Charlie Kirk brought that home to him very personally. He really liked Charlie. Yeah, there's a part of Trump that Trump really admires the fact that Charlie is not a revenge-oriented personality. He finds that a better moral trait. Trump's just honest enough to say, I'm from New York. I'm not. But he respected greatly the fact that Charlie was that way. As Donald Trump Jr. did. I love Donald Trump's Jr. imitation of his dad. He nailed that to a T, Don. It's like, you're shit posting a little bit too much there, Don. The and he nailed it. But it's that same mindset. It came through with everybody's presentation. That common theme, of the unifier that Charlie Kirk was. But I think that the public reaction we're seeing to this can be another unifying moment. A unifying moment, but in much the way that the horrible, the trauma of those 4 Birmingham girls getting bombed, or Martin Luther King's assassination, if you study the civil rights, turn the tide. All of a sudden, people that were okay with the Klan, or winking at the Klan, or nodding with the Klan, or helping the Klan, all of a sudden we're like, I want nothing to do with you people.
I don't want this. This
is not what I was signed up for at all. And I'm seeing that from a wide range of normies. That a lot of people are like, I don't want anything to do with this. Like, you even see Antifa writing internals, because Andy No follows their report, what they're doing in detail, says they're saying this was a disaster for us. That we're seeing that now the Trump today, I guess on Sunday, you can in fact designate Antifa a foreign terrorist organization, because that is what it is and has always been for a century, more than a century, or almost exactly a century. Their theme songs aren't Italian because they're Frank Sinatra fans. The North Italian communist who set it up. But I think but now they're really starting to tune in. Trump is realizing how broad this was. I mean, basically everybody loved Charlie. For those that don't know, if you knew him personally, it was impossible. Now, that's why even Cenk Uygur, who had said all kinds of nasty things about Charlie, after he got to meet Charlie, was one of the first people to condemn the murder, because even he, with all of his contaminated politics, was like, that guy was a pretty good guy. I mean, it was hard to dislike him in person. It truly was. So I think the country can use this as an opportunity to restore the beliefs about what makes America America, and completely quash the political permission slip to the radical left violence that's been haunting us for a decade, if we do it and handle it right. And we're on the path to do so. And the government now is listening. So we just need to help provide them data and information that gives them direction to go. And you can use, I laid on Sunday the legal steps, Antifa, foreign terrorist organization, parallel to treat Antifa like the Klan. We've got a bunch of legal systems and methods already in place to deal with politicized violence by private groups. And it's been very successful. Just replicate it. Just repeat it. I got some friends that'll be happy to staff that at the Justice Department, take care of that, know exactly where to go. If they got some people that are a little nervous Nellies up there. Or if Cash is worried about where it might lead, and that inevitably we're going to find some government informants, infiltrators, and instigators that are likely part of this somewhere.
I'm almost, Robert, because when Laura and I were discussing the likelihood of this, after being told and shown some things that weren't private, that weren't public, every single political assassination in recent memory has had the government's hand, somewhere. All right. And for those of you who may not know this, I hate to break this to you, but this is how dirty your government is. The FBI nudged members of the Nation of Islam, specifically the Newark Mosque, to kill Malcolm X. The shotgun shooter not only never went to jail, folks. 2 guys spent 2 decades of their lives when they did not shoot Malcolm fatally, because this was an FBI's guy. And by the way, he was also a serial rapist. He got to live out his days to the ripe old age of like 70 something. And then or older maybe. And then he got himself a government funded young boys club, which he ran until he was in his 60s, I believe. Anyway, he died relatively recently, but not before he appeared in Cory Booker's campaign video when he first ran for U.S. Senate. And also Murphy's lieutenant governor in the state of New Jersey attended his funeral. All right. I mean, we all know, even though there hasn't been any really good information given to us about the MLK assassination. If you don't think that you're going to see Hoover's fingerprints on that somewhere, then I'm sorry, you're like a Boy Scout and you need to wake up and realize what time in this country we've been living in since they got away with murdering our president and nobody was held responsible. Oh, that was another thing I did want to ask too about various government entities and involvements in prior political assassinations, because I think you're going to find some of these people think that they're also justified to do this, considering we effectively, by not holding anybody else accountable for these assassinations, we have effectively told these people, like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? I mean, that's the message you're sending when nobody is held to account for the murder of a president. Nobody's held to account for the murder of a civil rights, which you could have painted. Well, he was the violent militant one. Okay, then why'd you kill the non-militant one too? So it's like you get that one first as an excuse, and when nobody's really held accountable for it, then they decide, well, I guess I'm safe to kill the non-violent one, and really whoever the hell I feel like killing, which they then did. And then obviously that culminated with the the murder of the president. And if you speak to any of these people from that era, like these what we even call them, civil rights leaders, whatever, so many of them have told me, Robert, like that those murders were successful in that they led to like them quieting that revolution, in some way, shape, or form. Like, that they effectively traumatized and scared them into submission. And so many people would later just go on to conform, in one way or another. And Nancy Pelosi was supposed to be a revolutionary. Instead, look where she got a career in Congress. She hasn't, done anything revolutionary. She's a typical hatchet lady, representative of K Street. That's what she is. She's not some kind of, big left-wing revolutionary. She's not Che Guevara, bro. Come on, and so many people that were, just part of the rank and file of these movements went on to become like your textbook suburban dad, suburban mom, and that's it. And they effed everything up, of course, but but they felt
how
like
you're definitely right. How it's handled will have a major impact on whether or not the evildoers succeed or those who want to see good succeed.
That's right. That's got to be the difference here, man.
Yeah. Now, the flip side is all those assassinations are part of why Robert Kennedy Jr. is Robert Kennedy Jr. And is fearless at seeking what he wants politically. And same with Tulsi Gabbard. I always called it the reverse. I would describe it as my own, political philosophy and approach to life. There's the old saying that the sins of the father will be visited upon the son. I like to say the sins against the father will be avenged by the son. And the Robert Kennedy Jr. is in that camp. And so but look at how he wants to do it is, by doing it in the most positive aspects of what his father's legacy was, and what his uncle's legacy was. That's why he really appreciated and enjoyed Charlie Kirk. And we just need honest, accurate data to get to this. And I think relationship to technologies. How we basically let big tech run a mass social experiment on our population, and we're starting to see the horrifying consequences of that. And we need to really wrap our arms around how we deal with them going forward.
Yeah, let me play something that's like you said, the flip side is that RFK is RFK. And there are some things that I personally have heard, witnessed, but also, now there are these clips I'm going to show so everybody else can get an idea of what I'm trying to say here. But Benny, another good friend, Benny Johnson's good guy. I met Benny Johnson through Charlie Kirk. Holy shit. It's unbelievable. And as we're doing this show, I have people texting me like crazy, personal friends, people who follow me on locals, like, that they met me at Turning Point at this seminar, this conference, or that my wife, one of her best friends, was a young, she was like, Laura kind of like mentored her. And now she's, a grown woman. She's getting married in November. These relationships that Charlie made and helped create. It's just incredible. And it's because this tech thing can be used for good, Robert, and can be used to help and further relationships. I know a couple on my locals community, they just got married. Like literally they got married through the People's Pundit page. Like they met each other and then, became, fell in love. And that's a beautiful human story. But there's so much that is not, that can be used to dehumanize
the algorithms. Algorithms are clearly
so right. How much of this is on point, is purposeful, because
exactly. I think big tech is in order to get eyeballs. There's even a documentary on this where a whole bunch have admitted this. In order to get, in fact, they have them radicalized. Of course, they pretend it's a right winger getting radicalized. That's what made it incredulous. If they'd been honest, they would have shown a left winger getting radicalized, and people would have been like, "Oh my goodness, I've seen that before," rather than the fictional version they had. But that they deliberately, the whole goal was, how do you get eyeballs? How do you get people addicted to this? And then what they've discovered was negative emotions was the most powerful way to do it.
Yeah.
It was like the opposite of Charlie. Like everything was Charlie was find the positive, accentuate the positive, get the positive, pursue the positive. You know, if you're facing the dark, look for the light, look for the light, look for more light, look for more light. This is just like big tech's algorithm is just the opposite. Go deeper, go darker, go darker, go darker, go darker, go darker, go darker. They, radicalize for Al Qaeda, radicalize for ISIS, radicalize for terror, for Antifa, radicalize for all these groups. Think about the New York Times big hit pieces about Stefan Molyneux and David Rubin or radicalizing people. They're right that there was an online radicalization, but it wasn't on the right. Those were the guys holding back the radicalization, stemming it into a different direction away from radicalization. Philosopher Stefan Molyneux, moderate libertarian Dave Rubin. It was the left that was using it to radicalize, and big tech is deeply, deeply complicit. And I think that has to be part of whatever investigation we're doing. I even see it as connected to MAHA because it's about the mental health.
It's mental health, 100%. This is what they're doing. They're exploiting. They found a high-tech way to exploit a mental health problem that they already started and created. And that's the thing. We're in this like vicious cycle of how this is all done because, it's like the method they're using to catch these people also creates more mental health issues anyway. So it's like they're creating more targets to be able to catch. And we had this, like you said, this huge test that we ran on a population without ever having any discussion about the potential side effects or what could be done to us. Like that, they just, they all gave us stories about how for, the internet and these social media platforms, they're going to, they're going to democratize information and they're going to lead to the greatest discussion and debate ever. And it was all a load of horse shit, of course. Like, well, maybe in the beginning, it wasn't.
They made great lengths.
Maybe they did believe.
Oh yeah, they tried to suppress that aspect of it. And I think there were people like the Bitcoin founders, Satoshis of the world, who wanted various aspects of the digital revolution to be a freeing revolution. But in order to counter that, big tech, I think in cahoots, I think we will find, and this may go to the people's concerns about whether everything's being transparent in the investigation with Charlie Kirk. I think we dig in, you're going to find governmental ties with big tech to do. I mean, what they really did is they literally created a bunch of sleeper cells across the country that could be triggered at a given moment.
They could activate
by a text message. That's what they did. And they made them. They isolated and destroyed young men's lives in general. Started medicating them from the age of 5. Dehumanized them. Told them they're toxic. Told them they're terrible. Told them they're awful. Told them they're evil. Did the whole shame routine that is a necessary precondition to radicalization. Then they isolated them from friends, from family, from community, in a wide range of techniques and tricks. Then they got them dependent on technology for their social life in such a way that it dehumanized and de-individualized that life into the last step of radical violence, accepting that violence, tutoring them in violence, the means, mechanisms, and method of that violence through Antifa organizations, both locally and online, in order to do it. But a critical component to all of it, because we haven't seen many examples of this in human history. I mean, like even the MLK assassination was most likely an inside job. It wasn't really this degree of radicalization. We've seen examples of it, but not quite like what we're seeing here. And I think technology and big tech is going to end up playing a big culprit role. And I'm sure somewhere along the way, the government will probably step into a culprit role as well. But I think all of it has to be looked at if we're going to get our arms around it to where we contain it, to where we push the country in the Charlie Kirk direction, not the assassin's direction. In order to make sure the country goes in the Charlie Kirk direction, not the assassin direction, because this can get otherwise out of hand rapidly. If everybody starts seeing their neighbor as an imminent threat to their lives, society falls apart.
Look what happened with Rand Paul. He was out mowing his lawn, and this nutcase, his neighbor, supposed to be neighborly, folks, right? Just sees Rand Paul as the devil incarnate and decides, I'm going to go attack the guy while he's mowing his freaking lawn. I mean, this is not normal human behavior. Something there's a force acting on us. And you just went through all the litany with young men. And it's like, this idea of blurring roles as a gender role. So, blurring the roles, the bottom line, you take away certain things from young men, simple things that every man, and it doesn't matter if you try to change the role of a man, we have a natural feeling in us. We didn't need society to spell it out for us. There's you need to be some level a provider for yourself, for your loved ones, right? You have to be able to feel the dignity and integrity of that role, to feeling the need of a woman, right? That you're on various levels and in different ways, and that's what our society has been teaching women for years. You don't need a man, right? So with the tricks that are being played on the minds of young men, it's all of this anger and all of this confusion and all these questions build up, and this big tech infrastructure comes along and gives someone to hate and blame, right? In some way that it's really that simple what's going on. They give you the target to blame for all of your inadequacies, your unhappiness with whatever it may be. And it can come in different ways
that they've stripped from you, right? They take away your comics, they take away your entertainment, they take away your culture, they medicate you like mad, they take away even your sports to a degree. And they say everything that is about you that's natural is wrong. Because your masculinity is toxic, your race is privilege, your religion is oppressive, your nationalism is a commemoration of horror, of moral horrors through history, of colonialism, and using all these big fancy words that most of them can't even define.
Understand?
Along with whatever is going on that's disconnecting people from their own humanity and getting them to hate themselves. Because that's what's the common denominator between
bottom line.
Young girls having high levels of anxiety that have been introduced to social media and young men getting radicalized in these crazy different directions. What's in common is that they're teaching them to hate themselves, to take who you are in God's creation. This is what I loved Charlie's response always on trans issues. One, he showed for all the people out there how to be, how my brother does much better than I do, but because he's a professor, but how do you be sympathetic and sensitive to an opposing opinion or opposing lifestyle? Charlie was a master of this. These trans people would come up, even people would come up, you could see his sympathy, his natural sympathy. He called it sympathy rather than empathy. I mean, people misunderstood that.
I know.
Much more robust.
Because
the person would come up, he was like, I don't agree with them, so I don't empathize in that sense. I sympathize because they're a human being. Because they're all human beings. They're all souls. That just
still want better for them. That's behind his position on traditional marriage, guys. And this is something we talked about. And I got yelled at by somebody for not being more like Charlie, where he could articulate this in a better way. Instead, I'm much more of a ruffian, and I'm just like, you know what? You're sad. You know what I mean? Because you don't have this.
Last week I was like, if you don't know what gender you is, I'm pretty sure God gave you a clue. Just saying. That was my approach. I mean, it was much, but what Charlie would sit there and someone was trans and saying they're worried about the trans medicine and and Charlie would say, what I think it would be great if you love the body God gave you. I think that would be a solution for you. I think that would be that would be the end goal for you to reach. And it was positive. And it wasn't negative at all.
And this thing too, that when you do, you can share in this thing also that God created, this institution, this union with a woman or something in that case, or, vice versa. If you're a woman with a man, right? Somebody of the opposite sex, and that marriage is this beautiful thing, and raising children, it's this beautiful thing, but you can't get that until you're you're mentally on the level, right? So
and
it's
that's what I'm thinking. What ties big tech together with this spike of young girl anxiety to the degree of self-harm and these young men getting radicalized is something tech is doing is teaching people to hate themselves.
To
hate themselves for who they are, to hate themselves for who God created them to be.
Yeah. And I'm gonna play this because there's one ally with all of this. Big tech is not exactly open-minded. All right. And this is going back to concern I had, in the first 30 minutes of the show, saying, well, where does this movement go now? and there's not too many people. And let me just, I'll just close this out by saying this one thing, guys, like when Charlie's role, he made being a conservative cool again, like something that him and Donald Trump together had a very different brand than the traditional Republican Party, and Charlie becoming more populist and becoming in his own political journey, especially philosophically, he landed in a place where it was cool to be right wing, cool to be a populist right wing specifically. And that's something that alone is a lifetime achievement award. And that alone, because of where Republicans left, this party as an identity, right? And whether young people wanted to even be associated with such a thing. It's an enormous feat what he did. And of course, with Trump being the standard bearer of the party, I'll just say this before I bring this up, go on to this other thing here. I mean, one of the last things when we spoke about was a video he was making for my friend's son, basically going on to college soon and just telling the kid, you can dream big, and by the way, he had enormous amount of fans. Nobody says to my son, oh, you're the son of the people's pundit, man, that guy's cool. They all said, yo, your dad knows Charlie Kirk. That's awesome. All right. And that's the difference, and Charlie, he embraced it, and he used it in a positive way. And unfortunately, he was coming back from Asia. He was getting ready to do that. And unfortunately, this happened. And it's but just giving freely his time to a kid, that he doesn't know. I mean, just freely giving his time. Dream big, the way it goes. Don't let anybody tell you that you aren't, your opinions are wrong. Don't let anybody tell you can't achieve anything you can achieve. Just an incredibly positive message to give.
In fact, I was thinking about, I almost made it down there. I didn't get a chance to, but I'll probably write it, an obituary for Charlie Kirk. And I was going to borrow from Fidel Castro's speech after Che Guevara died. And it was a brilliant speech politically. Everything ended with be like Che, be like Che, be like Che, which, by the way, is why people told LBJ in the White House, whatever you do, don't kill Che, because they'll make him a martyr and we'll have twice as many problems.
Yeah.
But my view, but you could do that much more accurately. I mean, because Castro left out the part, want to be a torturer? Be like Che.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Want to be a mass murderer?
Yeah, be like Che. Whereas Charlie has the good version of that, but be like Charlie. Like there's not many, just like I say, there's not many problems to legal questions that the Constitution doesn't often provide an answer. There's not many questions in life that the Bible doesn't provide some answer. There's no questions to how you want to live your life that, to a certain degree, the example of Charlie Kirk doesn't provide an answer. Be like Charlie is often the right answer. And we just got to figure out why there's some people in the world that want to kill Charlie rather than be like Charlie, so that we can filter that out, provide that intel and information to decision makers, so that we can wrap our arms around it and nip this in the bud before it becomes the second Civil War.
Let's see too what roles, like, you were saying in the beginning about how even older school liberals that how they reacted very different. There is, like, again, one person that the media targeted to make kind of toxic in the beginning of the Trump administration, and then they had a falling out. And I saw this as basically a disaster for the Trump administration because, first of all, this man is brilliant. Second of all, he has a significant amount of resources that he dedicated to making sure the vote got out, which was huge. Knocked on my door like 3 times, which I've never seen that kind of dedication. But also is, again, in this space that almost certainly has to be a part of the solution. And we have very few allies in this space. So it does, this gives me, like, I don't know how else to put it. This is like one thing that gives me hope here moving forward, is that very clearly, I'm going to play 2 clips here. One is Benny Johnson, which I was going to bring up. And Benny is on the Charlie Kirk show earlier today, giving a little story. Like, basically, this is what I saw. And there are other clips, but I don't have to play them. I'll just tell you about them when I'm done. But listen to what he said about Elon Musk. and what has been going on. Because like only Charlie could have brought them together, and only Charlie could have patched this rift that has been created, and we need it to be. I mean, we need it to be. So a lot of people in Trump's orbit, as he was losing political allies here, were just like, oh, we don't need this one. Oh, we don't need this one. You need them all. Absolutely. And you need this guy 100%.
One little tidbit of advice. We got one of these lefties in the chat, Avador. With point one, if you want to advocate for the Palestinian cause, please quit committing terroristic violence. Okay. Your latest Free Palestine person decided to shoot up a wedding in New Hampshire. Okay. And this comes from both of us that have been critics of Israel, but don't come complaining to me about it when you constantly endorse and embrace violence. There's no bigger group of psychos in the world than the Palestinian cause with Hamas. Just reality. Number two, quit bashing America. Quit coming up with this fictional, fabricated world in which America was founded by all these evil, violent oppressors who oppress the. That is garbage. Garbage, you lunatic. Garbage, you nut job. Quit going to college and believing this crazy stuff. The tribes that were here were some of the most violent tribes in the history of man. That is true. The Native American tribes that had power here because, like the Comanche, they were so horrifying in their military violence. They loved slavery. They loved rape, assault, and even cannibalism. So it's a little reality check, fact check on your loony liberal nonsense. It's that kind of brainwashing idiocy that these people believe in that has triggered some of this insanity on the left.
You can't attack the founders and others in American history if you're not going to hold others to the same standard. It's like they only hold these guys to an impossible modern context standard, right? Which is not intellectually honest to begin with. But nobody else involved in these stories is held to the same standard. It's crazy. You know what I mean? It's only...
It was uniquely American to end slavery.
Yeah.
Right? Like you can go through Vikings. You know what the Vikings really love to do? Slavery. You can go through all, and you know who the biggest slave markets were? The Middle East, the Arab and the Muslim worlds. Those are the biggest markets. But so how is it that America ended slavery? Why is it that something that existed throughout all of human history, literally all of human history since the beginning of organized man? So it's, you can watch, History of the World Part 1 to Mel Brooks. Somebody discovers fire, and so he beats the other guy to steal the fire, right?
Yeah.
It's good to be the king. That whole routine. The brilliant critique. What changed was the unique nature of how evangelical belief was interpreted in America by our founders, combined with beliefs about how that religious belief meant everybody was equal by God, not by the state. Might not be the permission of somebody, not by but was by God. They were equal. The moment that became a popular belief and the justification for a government, slavery was doomed. It was the American Revolution that ended slavery. So this idea that America's always been founded on all violence is garbage, hot garbage. Many of the American founding generations were some of the least violent in the world because, of your point, compare it to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
What you did if you were part of one of the Native American tribes, you earned your bona fides by going and scalping people. So they had a very different perspective. I mean, they love to torture people for kicks and giggles. Read about these tribal traditions. Oh, let's get that.
Larry Schweikert has some incredible stuff on this, by the way. Like these misnomers with, and I'm not saying, guys, like, we didn't, come and take land that was occupied by other people. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, you can't
that's how they stole it.
One
that's how they got there.
I was just going to say, look at how they got it.
The Cherokee weren't all born on the land that they owned. The tribes are some of the, and I've represented Native American tribes. I have good friends that are within the tribal community. I advocate for tribal rights all the time. So don't be confused about this. But we can't have this fictionalized world that the left has created that creates these nonsensical interpretations of current events. We have to have a realistic understanding of that world and understand that this attack on the West, that somehow America is the problem with the world, Americanism is the problem with the world, nationalism is the problem with the world, Jesus is the problem with the world, is a dangerous ideology that is causing mass harm. The reality is the best of America is what's best for the world because it's what's the best for humanity, because it's rooted in the universal belief that every human soul is worth something. It looks beyond race, beyond religion, beyond region, beyond any definition of identification, and says you are good and worthy because God made you. And it is not up to me or anyone else to change that. And to devalue that the way the left has is an insult to our history and a dangerous threat to our progress.
And I'll just say this too. It's another misnomer that all these founding fathers were somehow like, pro-slavery. They weren't. In case you didn't, many people really don't realize that the country would not have even been established, or we wouldn't have come to an agreement if they didn't set into place the future abolition of slavery anyway. It was written into law at the founding that this thing is done by the year, I think it was 18 something. I forgot how many years.
It's already done by 1808.
1808. I was going to say 1808. 1809.
Lysander Spooner and Frederick Douglass's The Unconstitutionality of Slavery. But all of this comes back to, there is something critical, like going back to our study. I think what we'll find is, if you believe in God, your propensity to believe in violence, I think, will go down. Particularly,
of course.
If you're involved spiritually, you don't have to go to church, but if you're somebody who prays daily, if you're somebody who reads the Bible or any other major, religious text, beyond one particular religious text, to be honest, if you're reading parts of Islam, then yes, then you can go a different direction. But I think what we'll find, that's how Ilhan Omar, daughter of Marxist Muslims who engaged in systematic terrorism and who got into this country on fraud by her father lying about him being a victim when he was the perpertrator. Which
the media still lies about to this day.
Yeah, they still lie. And she's out there lying about libeling, people. Again, I thought she might have learned a lesson from the Covington kids case, but apparently not. But for the most part, I think we'll find these traits that Charlie Kirk had. If people that share those traits, you will find lead to higher levels of self-satisfaction by their own description, that their lives are better, that they like their lives, that they enjoy their lives, they have a positive approach to their lives, but also that they will be far less likely to be willing to engage in or support at any level politicized violence for purely civil discussion and dialogue. And there's attributes that Charlie learned as a matter of mindset, as a matter of belief, and as a matter of lifestyle that are essential to encouraging and incentivizing in order to discourage and dissuade this dangerous violence that the left is trying to. Soros wants the whole world to burn. He's a walking, talking joker. That is who and what he is. He believes that nationalism is the great threat to the world. He's a man who smiled when they joined the Nazis to steal from his Jewish neighbors. And when CBS 60 Minutes asked him about it, he's like, why would I feel guilty about that? That is who and what he is. And that is who and what they are. And the best way to defeat it is to be like Charlie, but also to identify within the data that the data confirms this hypothesis that we're testing, that then the government and decision makers within society can take proactive steps to continue us on the right path and stay away from the wrong path.
Let me play this clip by Benny. He's going to convey this thing, this moment. And then I want to play something because I remember talking to Charlie about a reconciliation and when he thought, if any, ever, that it would happen. And first, let me just shut up, play the clip from Benny first, and then I'll tell everybody.
Stage, I got to see a lot of interactions. I got to backstage, front stage. I was seated amongst all the cabinet secretaries, got to see a lot. Elon Musk came by a couple times, and I just want to use Elon Musk as a example of the power of Charlie's legacy. Elon Musk and Donald Trump had a bit of a falling out. Maybe you've heard of it.
Sure.
And that sucked, especially for guys like Charlie, who were coalition builders. Charlie Kirk was thanked on stage by Donald Trump himself for bringing together RFK Jr. and MAHA movement. Donald Trump says, Charlie created MAHA. I don't think Charlie ever will get the credit that he deserves for doing that. But also,
just for the record, he just did from us because we know, right?
Yes, absolutely.
100%.
Charlie Kirk brought together massive coalitions of, well, at any Turning Point event, you can find Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, and Tucker Carlson sharing the same stage, right? Maybe not together, but they're all there, right, to give an opportunity to project their worldview, right? Charlie was constantly doing that. constantly bridging gaps, constantly fusing together, because he realized that if we don't hang together, we will surely hang separately, which is exactly what Elon Musk told me. So backstage, Elon Musk embraces Erica Kirk, and she's crying in his arms, and they're hugging, and it's really profound. This was after the speeches. This was after the program. And this is the words that Elon Musk said to us in this small little group with Erica Kirk. And he said, this is why I was proud to sit with my president. This is what he called Trump, my president today. He accepted Trump's invitation to go up there, and the majority of the event Elon Musk sent sitting there with Donald Trump, chewing it up. Everyone can see here's the photos of Elon embracing Erica, and then there are photos of Elon with Trump, and they seem to be having a great time.
That's all I want. I mean, that's all I have to play at the moment. I do think that Charlie's murder, his political assassination, which is what this was, is going to get people to rethink these riffs, because of what Benny just basically quoted Charlie as saying: if we don't hang together, we'll all hang separately. And I 100% always shared that idea, number one. And polling that I would share with Charlie and Elon, we would ask his favorability, and he saw it immediately, and he would tell this to the White House all the time. Like, look what my guy just showed me. Look at this. Yeah, he's unpopular, but look who he's unpopular with. Like, these guys aren't going to be around much longer. The young MAGA is the future of this country. They love him. They still love him. And he would try to convey this. And he always thought that they were going to make a comeback because the left was crazy. And eventually the left does things that bring people who otherwise are opposed to each other or maybe feuding with one another. They do something so dramatic, it reminds them why they were allies in the first place. Only the left could get Donald Trump elected, Robert. This is what they don't understand. The left and the fake people on the right, like the Bill Crystals, and it's only these people, and their failures, their lies, only they are so bad. Their policies are so bad, their actions are they're so morally repugnant that you could be such an you're such a bad choice that Donald Trump is clearly the more palatable choice. That's only the left can do that, and they never understood that. And here's Charlie from 2 months ago. I want to play a clip. Just 2 months ago. This is what he said.
Now, it might seem as if this is irreconcilable between President Trump and Elon Musk. How could they possibly ever join forces? How could they ever come back together after all this back and forth? President Trump is talking about starting a new political party. Elon Musk is starting a new political party, and they're attacking, and it's just as nasty as you could imagine. And it seems as if that it's only going to increase. But President Trump has in front of us a rather dramatic and telling track record of being able to reconcile and work with people that were otherwise considered to be sworn enemies of MAGA, where we were in the nastiest of all circumstances. Elon Musk is a patriot. Do I think Elon Musk is misfiring on starting a new political party? Yes. That would do nothing but help the Democrats have permanent political control over the country. Let's just be honest. It would turn the country into a third world hellhole. It would be wide open borders. That is a bad idea. Do I think Elon Musk wants what's best for America? Yes, I really do. Him buying X and him buying Twitter will go down as one of the most consequential, important purchases. I said at the time, and I was mocked, the most important purchase since the Louisiana Purchase, and I was right.
Yeah, I remember
It was
that.
a liberating of conversation. The other tech titans followed.
I remember that, by the way.
Look, in politics, sometimes it requires sharp elbows, requires the capacity to throw a couple jabs. It is not unheard of for President Trump to get a little bit upset. There was at times where he was insulting Steve Bannon 8 years ago, and all that kind of got remedied. It's all part of the the Trump story. Sometimes things get very heated, and then there's a reconciliation. There's a reapproachment. And we all agree that we want Elon Musk and we want Donald Trump to work collaboratively. I've been waiting for this piece of tape, but I'll try to find another one here. Which is the best example in front of us is as we're doing this program, President Trump is hanging out with Ron DeSantis.
That's it.
Ron DeSantis, who they were the worst of enemies imaginable, where they were as bitter enemies. I mean, they were just attacking each other relentlessly.
Well, what happened?
They were in the midst of a primary. Donald Trump did not have very good things to say about Ron DeSantis at all. And now they're taking questions on the tarmac, and in his own words, he says that his relationship with Ron DeSantis is a 10. Play cut 310.
Stand here now as partners on this effort. How would you describe the relationship, and what future does Governor DeSantis have?
I think it's a 10. Maybe 9-9, because there might be a couple of little wounds. So maybe it's not 9. We get along good.
I endorsed him immediately in January 2024. I raised one of his PACs millions and millions of dollars, and then we worked very well on this and other issues with Florida. You can call him at any time, and he wants to be helpful for governors.
I mean, we don't have to play the rest here, but Charlie goes on to say, because they had to come together to deal with Democrats. So, like, this was, in his mind, an inevitability. Something was going to happen where Elon was going to go, I just can't. I can't. I gotta work with Trump. I just can't. And Trump's going to go, shit, I could really use Elon to help beat these crazy sons of bitches. You know, that's how Trump talks. You know, so, and now this is certainly an extreme event, but Elon said to Tommy Tomlinson during the rally that if we don't get back together and fight back, they're going to kill us all. This is survival at this point, and we have to fight back or die. Like, that's it. Like, that's what he said. Real Clear Politics had the video up for days as the front video, because I think Bevan and John over there are both really smart guys as far as like knowing the angle and what's going to happen, you know, reading the room kind of thing. And I think this is like the moment where everybody is going to realize, you know, like you said, everybody loved Charlie. It was like the exact wrong person to take out and take away from us. You know, it was you could have found a more divisive target. You know, like, it just doesn't seem like, I guess the effectiveness was just too much for them, Robert. I don't know why, you know, they would dial up the temperature this much to nudge somebody to do this to Charlie. But, you know, effectiveness, maybe they just couldn't stand. I mean, for me, I don't believe in consequences. Coincidences in politics. We just got a huge New York Times article that was like, DEFCON 5, DEFCON 10, you're losing and bleeding voters. And, oh, by the way, young people don't like you anymore. I mean, that was literally, guys, in case you forgot, that was literally the headline in the New York Times the week before Charlie was shot. So I never, ever, I just don't believe in coincidences in politics anymore. But I still think it's going to be, it's more likely it'll be a net negative for the left, than
I think
hands down.
It has that potential to be a true rallying revival around the best of America. That, Charlie embodied the idea of America in his life and the choices he made. Not in terms of economic freedom and political freedom and religious freedom, but of a different value system than this dystopian, globalist, war-oriented, ideologically indoctrinated universe of self-hatred and mutual self-destruction. He was the exact opposite of that. the America that the very idea of which led to the end of chattel slavery, the very idea of which led to equality between races and equality between genders, the very idea of which led to an explosion of freedom around the world that is still the model we all want to emulate around the world to become. And if we follow that, if we be like Charlie, to be like America, then America can be the best version of itself. And I think that's what the legacy is. I think there's a few super chats. So
yeah. That's what I was just going to say. You want to go through
continue? Anybody out there that's got ideas? Some people mentioned in the chat that they know of some metrics that have been used to measure some of these things in particular. Send that along to Richard and I. Because any of the contributions and ideas, because your impact out there is much greater than people realize. I mean, if we didn't have the data, if Richard didn't have the credibility of the accuracy of the data with someone like Charlie, if people didn't fund and support 1776 Law Center so that it could provide the financial means to get that data, if the interest in the idea in getting it in the first place had never happened, we might not be here at all. And so this is valuable information that you make possible by supporting the Public Polling Project, so that not only are you more informed, but this information goes right to the key decision makers. It's had revolutionary positive effects in the past, and it can continue to, because the best of Charlie was reflected in that memorial, and America wants that choice. They don't want to be like Charlie's assassin. They want to be like Charlie Kirk. That's America at its heart and in its soul.
Yeah. I will answer that one dude, it's James Blair, not surprised at all. He's basically saying, because I had tweeted that it's what we were talking about with Elon and 10X and Turning Point, and saying the RNC didn't know what they were doing and that they had to do this. And he's like, you don't know what you're talking about. They were partners with us from the beginning. You had no idea what you were doing. And you're asking me about a project I literally supplied the data for. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about, bro. Like, you did not. These people all came to third parties and all said, the RNC has no idea what they're doing. Tell us what to do. They had no idea. And if it wasn't for their money, Rona and all the money that she did raise, she was amazing at raising money. They did nothing right with it. Their data was completely stale. They had latency issues that were like that beyond ancient dinosaur level shit. They had this database, this like $1 billion database they were trying to say it was, right? That they put together, that by the time they did reach the level that Democrats were at, circa 2012, it was already the old way of doing things, and they were catching up, playing a game can. Every time they did, Democrats would leapfrog further. They had AI in the field in 22. All right. So they were way behind on the game. So he's like, key partners, whatever. You're all key partners. Then why are they telling everybody that the RNC has no idea what they're doing, doesn't lend them help, has no idea how to put together these databases, doesn't know where the freshest, information is from. I will say this, they did try to work with Purely on the AI that was completely misused. All right. So at least they tried. I'll give them credit for that. But you can call somebody partners all you want because they were trying to go through the RNC, but you can say you were partners with them all you want, but their organizations did the work. As far as partnerships go, of course they want you to be able to give them, they want you to open the door for them and let them collaborate, but they didn't use your vendors. They didn't use your guys. They had their own people walking. They had their own apps developed. I don't know what you're talking about. You partnered with what? What did you do to help 10X create an app that allowed somebody to register for the absentee ballot list in 16 seconds? What did you do to help them? Zero. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And they didn't even use your data. They used mine. So what do you talking? Dude, get the fuck out of here with these people.
Robert Kennedy, J.D. Vance, all of them recognized Charlie was essential to all of it. He was primarily essential because he understood the message, he understood the community, and he was able to relay that to decision makers, sharing the data that Richard got that helped show the significance of it and that aspect. But it was also because of his unique personality, that his ability to stay diplomatic with everybody.
Which we don't have. which some of us don't have.
No. I'll be reminded now. Baris, remember when you said this about me? I was like, oh, okay, yeah. That was my twin brother Paul. You can ask Professor Durst. He's confirmed the existence of the twin brother Paul in live debate with Viva Frei. I even have a T-shirt that says my evil twin Paul did it. So
I'll throw one up. Good.
I mean, to Gabriel's point,
for Robert.
I agree. The point out is I share libertarians and civil liberties orient people like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul. I like them being consistent to their hardcore values, even when I don't agree with it, because I know I'm going to get a principled reaction from them. I may not agree with that, how it translates. I may not share the underlying assumption, but I respect that. In a Washington where basically 90% of them just lie and want the donors to line up their cash and can't wait for the next sex orgy trip wherever they're going, to have a Massey or a Paul, even when they're annoying as crap and they go off on these tactical things and sometimes obsessions I don't understand, I respect them because I know I'm going to get an honest opinion from them. If I ask Rand Paul, he's going to tell me. I'm not going to get some BS opinion. He's not going to test it with 6 of his donors first. He's going to tell me. And sometimes I get agitated with them, with both of them. But often, when I need advocacy on a liberty-oriented principle, I can call them up and they'll be some of the first people to answer the phone. They'll be say, hey, how can I help? How can I be involved? So I agree that I don't feel the need to justify, but I did feel the need to tell them, here is how this can work in a legal and moral and political policy perspective without offending your libertarian or liberty viewpoints. Because as the president of El Salvador put it, when he was saying, look, I did sacrifice some due process principles to secure the country to lock up with the cartels. He goes, but there is no liberty if you have no liberty to live. And he goes, as a government official, my first job is you're protecting your liberty to live. I want to protect every other liberty too, but we can't allow a political permission slip culture to exist from people in positions of authority. And the way I did it to an interview I did with George Gammon, who comes from that strong liberty-oriented perspective, libertarian-oriented perspective, was I said, think of it as cause, right? Like, imagine if our old law said you can only be fired for cause. And here we have a dual level cause. That if somebody is in a position of social authority that is in any way giving a political permission slip for politicized violence, then you have cause as an employer to fire them because they are endangering our safety and they are violating their duties as an employee. And we have a duty as a society to make sure they are no longer in a position of social authority, because we can't have actually give credit Gavin McInnes, one of his random rants that I saw recently. He said it's simple. Imagine if somebody worked next to you in the cubicle and you discovered that they really love rapists and they're a big fan of rape. Are you going to keep them employed next to women? I mean, you have to be nuts. You don't want sickos in your workplace.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, but I was with the Gammon interview in part because I respect their concerns. I'm a First Amendment hardcore. I mean, nobody was more First Amendment hardcore than Charlie Kirk. Charlie was the first one. If Pam Bondi had said that, when Pam Bondi or others said that when Charlie was alive, Charlie said, no, we're not having any hate speech exemptions. We're not going
Unbelievable.
there. I've seen where that goes. No. There's a difference between that and borrowing the Amish tradition, a Christian tradition, because the Amish are Christian, of shaming and shunning.
Yeah.
If you're in a position of social authority and you did anything to justify, encourage, incentivize, or incite violence, political violence, then you have given cause for your removal from that position of social authority, including if that position is a position of employment. So
I don't even see this
legally, otherwise.
I don't even see this as a First Amendment thing. And by the way, there's news on the Kimmel thing, which I'll share with you in a second, guys. But as it turns out, it never was. I gave an example of, let's say you worked at Applebee's, guys, okay? And one of these, waitresses you worked with, you ran around basically saying that this girl is a skank and she slept with everybody at Applebee's. So, she's easy. So one guy who hears you one day, right, that also works with you, a busboy or something, decides that he's going to take advantage of this girl and after work one day, and as it turns out, none of that was actually even true, and the guy sexually assaults her, all right, based on bad information because he's a sicko, right? So you gave a sicko, a mentally unstable person, bad information, and that information, you certainly had a right under the First Amendment to express an opinion about somebody, but as it turns out, it was wrong, and morally, you did a bad thing here. So Applebee's is definitely going to fire your ass because in some way you were responsible for that sexual assault. Now, weren't you? That's the same thing that happened here. The truth is, Trump didn't really pressure them like that anyway. It's not true. Jimmy Kimmel is, well, I mean, I'm sure, you know, there's that, but that's not why ABC fired them. Disney fired them. It's because he wasn't getting distributors, and the revenue was down, the ratings were down, and they were looking for a reason to shit can him anyway. And as it turns out, he was going to go on again and falsely blame MAGA after he was already corrected for the first comment, and he was going to do it again and was telling people basically to go pound sand. You're not going to police what I say. And they were trying to say, but he's not MAGA. You're calling the shooter. You're defaming an entire movement, and it's not true. So you're a liar. So like, that's what it comes down to. This is the new statement, because guess what? Kimmel's back. I kid you not. He got his way because it was never about the First Amendment to begin with. I mean, it was never about shaming anybody to begin with. Let's see if I can get this up here real quick. Why won't it show? For the love of God. There we go. Whoops. Oh, it's because the Charlie thing is still here. Okay. So now let's add this. The Walt Disney Company issued the following statement. I keep saying ABC, Walt Disney, all the same. Last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation at an emotional moment for our country. It is a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy, and after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. So he'll be back on the air tomorrow night. All right? So it had nothing to do with Trump pressuring them and First Amendment fascism or anything like that.
Now, isn't
unbelievable?
Aren't 2/3 of the affiliates he's no longer on anyway?
It doesn't matter, right?
Nick Starr said, "Well, we're not continuing to submit," and there should be continued pressure. I mean, this just shows who Walt Disney is. If this is what Walt Disney wants to make, that decision should be taken into consideration in a broad range of cultural, economic, and political contexts.
Yep.
The bottom line is part of the guilty of the radicalization is Hollywood itself.
They are part of this,
responsible, at least in part, for the explosion of violence of these kind of incidents, because they promote it through their media organizations. They know the media, as you've talked about, media promotion of mass shootings is the number one trigger to another mass shooting, and yet they keep doing it anyway because they know that and they want it to happen. And it's who and what they are. So I think they should face a consequence as well. I think this is a mistake of Disney. Disney listened to the U2s and the other people. They shouldn't have. They should have just canned him once and for all and been done with it and moved on.
Do you know who they hire to, every time something like this happens, guys, do you know who they hire to go out and poll the country and poll their viewership? Morning Consult. Yeah. So if you can't, I kid you not, go to the website right now, you will see their logo under our clients. All right. It's the same thing. And by the way, Elon, if you're listening, you should probably get your head out of your ass too, because Tesla employs them as well. So before you have Tesla make a stupid decision like this, ask Budweiser how they did using their data. Ask, all of these companies that made these tragic misfires on public relations.
I've no doubt Cracker
Morning Consult.
Someone like Morning Consult, they gave them bad data, bad information, bad insight that they're having to walk back that they may never be able to fully repair.
That's what happens.
It's the honesty of the data. Like if you go out there and study who's doing mass shootings, all you're going to get is fake data that says, oh, it's all a right-wing phenomenon, so on and so forth. And then I even asked my left-wing friends, I'm like, okay, tell me about the Democratic member of Congress that has been subject to a violent threat. Right. No, there hasn't been one. Oh, how about the Democratic presidential candidate or president?
Candidate.
Okay, no, there hasn't been one. Oh, how about the high-profile Democratic public figure who's been targeted by someone on the right, right? There have been Democratic state legislators in Minnesota targeted, but they were targeted by other left-wing Democrats who said they did it at the behest of the Democratic governor and Democratic vice presidential nominee, by the way. That's why
it's a bipartisan hit list, by the way. That was a bipartisan hit list. He just got to the Democrat first. That's all. They keep lying about that too. And then, by the way, they lied about Shapiro's fireboming. That was done by a left-wing pro-Palestine sympathizer. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's truly unbelievable.
And that's why
he's logged under right-wing violence.
Honest information, accurate information that's actionable for you to take in the public, because the media will just continue to lie and lie and lie.
The Washington Post little database, the Minnesota is listed as a right-wing act of terrorism. It is not. at all. The guy was absolutely delusional to begin with, but as a bipartisan hit list. Let's see. I would love to see what the impact this has in 6 months' time. Don't we all, Eric? I mean, the thing is, in politics, 6 months is forever. So we'll see.
One like short-term consequence. Or midterm. The short-term consequence has been a revolution and revival amongst a lot of people on the right in normie America. So far, the public reaction has been far more positive than negative, despite the early awakenings to how dangerous parts of the left are at politically giving the political permission slip to this violence. I'll give you another one. I mean, we'll talk about it more on the next show. But I think the New Jersey governor's race may be back up for grabs. I think there's some places that this is motivated. As you started picking up in your data, some people who are starting to go politically asleep are awake at a whole different level. Particularly a lot of these young voters. So if the Trump coalition would give them something substantive policy-wise, for the love of God, get us out of Ukraine. Those Ukraine neo-Nazis put Charlie on a death hit list. Why in the world we should not spend another
along with Jack Posobiec
$1 to those people?
Jack Posobiec's on it too. Shit, I'm on that list. I think I think you made 65. Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is not a joke. When we see things like this,
hit list. The only other high-profile public murder like this in the last decade was by Ukraine of the daughter of the Russian professor, who was a journalist, who was a purely civilian, and they cheered it and they thought it was how wonderful it was. That's how sick the Ukrainian mindset is. And
Western
so
values
gets us out of there, like Charlie wanted us out of there.
Amen.
Western values. Rich, I have qualifiers that would narrow things down. Social media usage, specifically Twitch, Discord, Blue Sky. I got to tell you, we also have Reddit on there. Reddit seems to be a big lot of activity. Discord, though, is what concerns me the most, though, Robert, because like there are actual documentation of feds infiltrating these groups, and then I mean I don't know what else. The old school left wing word is nudge. And
the head of the Discord came out and lied about it. Said, nothing. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You knew he was lying.
Come on.
So, but yeah, I agree with you. Which source of information you rely on, how isolated you are, how dependent you are on tech, which tech you're using, why you're using it, and some of the verbiage used. Yeah, those are all good ideas. So appreciate, continue to send those ideas because we want to make this as good as we can get. Because Richard's 1776 for Freedom's poll truly changed the course of that election.
Yeah.
Thanks to Charlie. Making sure that poll was read by the right people to make political change happen. So we can achieve the same thing here if we move in the right direction, get the right data, and the country as a whole continues to follow the Charlie path rather than the anti-Charlie path.
I like this, the verbiage stuff, mutual POC, we got to look more into that. Video of Charlie's murder was out within minutes. It shook me hard. How long was it before the public saw the Zapruder film with JFK?
Right. It didn't happen until the trial in New Orleans 5 years later.
Oh
so it didn't occur in 1963. 4 to 5 years later, it was the first time the Zapruder film was ever seen was by members of the media and the jury pool in the trial in New Orleans. That was organized. That was the subject matter of the JFK film by Oliver Stone. So nobody even knew of its full existence or anything about it until then. It was Morrison who got it and who used the trial to get it out there. And because once it's published in a trial, it can then be published to the world. That's how people were able to discover and uncover what took place and began to put a few pieces together. That's why they ran hit piece after hit piece after hit piece on it.
Yeah, this is the next one's just sorry, I gotta take a puff here, guys. The next one was just about that dude Blair. Yeah, everyone, look, dude, that is a textbook example of a useless party dinosaur trying to justify their existence and their job and their role. I mean, that's all it is. Without Charlie, without Elon Musk, and without the guys like 10X, there would not have been the ground game that these people had. And by the way, James, you think I don't know about the meeting with Susie and the rest of them when they took our blueprint? You think I don't know this? Like Charlie told me it all anyway. I don't know. It's like I should never have given them that blueprint without making people sign non-disclosure agreement. So instead, what they did was to use their own vendors so they can stuff all the money in their own pockets. And I should never have done that. I should never have allowed them to have it. But whatever, I mean, it went to the greater good, and it is what it is. And thank God, people weren't trying to reinvent the wheel after they saw it. Many of them just tried to duplicate what we were doing, and that's fine, whatever. But these guys are hilarious. I mean, you think I don't know those three guys, these three donors? You all know their names. They're all public big GOP donors. They asked me for that. I put it together. They had dinner with Susie and these guys, and they used it. Only they used it with their vendors. And later I was told that by Charlie. So, I mean, give me a break. Anyway, the other one is Charlie built a parallel structure to replace establishment control of primaries. Right. As if this guy's like, I was a partner with him. Okay. On the ground that could have led to the final transformation of the Republican Party to represent populist interests and really fight on a legislative and judicial level. What will happen now? Well, I think we're going to find out, Owen. I mean, I think what do you think, Robert?
I think there are a lot of sharp people around Turning Point that want to absolutely are committed to continuing the Charlie tradition. I think that's part, like I don't remember where the commentary was, but it was somebody pointing out that that there was this popular perception out there that this was just a Trump movement, and I guess in some places just a Charlie movement. This is a huge movement that these men are critical to, but is not the sole basis of. This movement will continue without any, and you're seeing it. You're seeing it in that the number of Turning Point places that exist across the country as a meaningful grassroots organization is probably going to increase tenfold in the next year on the conservative side. Turning Point, my prediction is within 5 years, Turning Point will be on almost every college campus in the United States and on many of the leading high school campuses across the United States. Charlie's message wasn't stopped with a bullet like it could have been. If anything, it is just the opposite. There is a massive rallying cry to the very best of Charlie that will continue, including this essential role in bridging the gap and building the populist coalition that can be sustainable for maintaining the American constitutional republic from its globalist threats.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to wait a little bit, guys, to see how. I just think that again, I agree with Robert. I think that this is gonna backfire. Look, you can't replace Charlie, but you can't take away his mission and his message either. And there's a lot of people out there that Charlie actively supported, and they're all going to be I don't want to say pissed, that's not the word, but they will be extremely motivated to make sure that his mission continues. By the way, there are a group of very talented people that Charlie had around him. He was the face, of course, of Turning Point, but absolutely, look, you said it before, Robert. I mean, they put on the biggest national funeral in 7 days, while they're grieving. This is an incredibly talented group of people who believed in the cause. These are all true. That's the one thing about Turning Point. It's not like other organizations. Unfortunately, there are too many. They're not like them. They're true believers, and they will carry on. So, we'll see what form that takes, but you can't stop what they were trying to do. And honestly, Erica's a very impressive woman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
She's a very impressive woman.
She's Miss Arizona, right? I mean, it's not like she was, some quiet, bashful, whatever. I mean, she's a dynamo of a personality. And the people, and Charlie was very good at the people he put around him. God bless President Trump. Let's just say Charlie has a much better track record when it comes to personnel. In fact, Charlie was much better. Trump was much better when he took Charlie's advice about who to put in the White House and around him. So I have great confidence in especially if we help helmet and move it in that direction. I think that we can keep Charlie's message alive and be louder and more well heard and taken to than it ever has been before.
And last one I'll read here, and Peppers, after I get off the air, I'll go and look and see, because I don't know. I didn't see your reply, but I'll go look and see right now. In 10 days, and other than that, I can't DM you because on X, because I don't know which one's you. In 10 days, we have had the Charlotte black on white knife murder of a female Ukrainian refugee on a public transit, a trans Tifa political assassination of Charlie Kirk, and now a Free Palestine radical shooting at Nashua, New Hampshire wedding. Don't forget, by the way, about the ABC News shooting in California, which was somebody who had wrote something horrible about Charlie Kirk, by the way, in a reaction. By the way, that was for a teachers union. I think he's a radical leftist. He did it for the teachers union. There is nowhere Americans can be safe from leftist violence. U.S. politics will change because of these acts. Concealed carry and less public transit ridership are the guaranteed minimums here. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm definitely carrying a lot more. Conscientiously, I am. I mean, we are going to do an event, Robert. And by the way, she's probably going to call you to pick your ears, and definitely invite you. But like now we have to think about different levels of security that we were not thinking about before. It's just unfortunately, this is the reality. And even the venue, bro, like it has to be a controlled environment. It can't be, not too many entrances. No, definitely not rooftops. You know what I mean? Like definitely not that, because, this was something Jack and I had spoken about these events. Like definitely Jack too. He was very uncomfortable with that setting, that, just open setting. And there didn't seem to be anybody scouring, rooftops the way that you would, you would hope a Secret Service would be doing their job like that to protect the president. Of course, they've had their own shares of botch, jobs these days. But yeah, I think that life will unfortunately change for a while. We had these assassinations we were talking about in the 60s, though. Life did return to normal for a period. And that's why, again, it's so important that we do get our arms around this thing and try to figure. Right now, everyone's just running on, they're completely blind here, Robert. Nobody knows. Like, we think we have some idea, but not enough, and certainly not enough to think about any preventative measures. We're nowhere near that kind of understanding. And the FBI is too busy. Just their mission is, I don't even know. Like their mission is totally corrupted, Robert. Like right. I don't even know if they could be part of a solution to this thing.
Yeah, I think more of the Civil Rights Division at DOJ, Harmeet Dillon, I think could have a significant role. The State Department with a foreign terrorist organization designation can have a significant role. The broader social culture of continuing to shun and shame those that are in positions of influence that refuse to retract or correct their prior outrageous comments and statements. And then I think for those of us in the space of influencing space, I've had some security protocols, so we've never had an incident. There's certain, you don't disclose the location until very late. The location is an indoor location. You have the security check it 6 or 7 different times, weeks or months in advance. There are ways in which you can mitigate and minimize any degree of risk. I worked with Alex Jones's people who are some of the best, because Alex was under constant threat everywhere he went. Now his reaction to all this, he's like, well, I'm gonna do a campus tour. These people want to shut people up. I'm going to make sure the voice is heard. I'll go out there in my bare chest and say, have at it. Alex is Alex.
It's Alex for you. Yeah,
exactly. But I think they want to shut us down. So I'm guaranteed to not shut down simply because people want to shut us down.
Well, isn't that the point though? Really? That's the point.
Correct. That's absolutely the point. I think it's one of the things we could probably test for. Is it sometimes a good thing if people get you have to figure out the language to get them to be honest and forthcoming. But I think that's one of the things, like these people, they're like, well, this will be your destinies of the world, to get them to say out in the open, well, now conservatives will be scared to speak out. See what people will say about things like that. But I think they judge the American people wrong because they judge Charlie Kirk wrong. And in the process, they're going to judge wrong the likely consequences of what they've done.
Yeah, I don't think they have enough self-awareness, guys, to really understand. Like, here, just so you guys know, this is what this guy, and Tom Bevan put this up, by the way, from Real Clear Politics. This was his reaction, this guy. This is the guy who shot up an ABC affiliate in Sacramento. He worked for the California Teachers Union. This is what he posted about Charlie Kirk's assassination. As you can see, look at the date, 9/11. Right? I think the word empathy, that made up new age term, did a lot of damage to CK's carotid. This is what we're dealing with. These are the people. Exactly.
And now I'll give credit to the feds for not letting the state release him, but part of by picking him up himself on federal charges after the state released him. But there's a lot of power here, and we've been through this before. And to be frank, if you were here in 1924 and the Klan looked a lot scarier than Antifa does. I mean, the Klan had a degree of, they were electing a majority of Indiana state legislature. Imagine if Antifa actually elected a majority of a state legislature. Now, you got Antifa legislators that are admitting it in Colorado, Seattle, other places, but nowhere near a majority. So that if you look at the broad course of history, you can, in fact, completely get around this and defeat this. But it's got to be in the right. It's got to be in the right Charlie Kirk kind of mindset. But the data that we'll get together, that Richard's poll will show and substantiate, will give a roadmap for those with good faith intentions in the law, in the social decision-making, policy decision-making, law enforcement worlds at the state and federal level, and domestic and international level. Because what we're doing, other countries are facing in Europe and other parts of the world, can utilize it and say, okay, here's how it happens, here's why it happens, here's what we can do to deter it from happening.
Yeah, the Michael McDonald case, once they were allowed to sue the Ku Klux Klan, which is why, I mean, when you said before about how Erica and Turning Point would be able to sue some of these organizations and people, that perked my ears up, because they not only put those two in jail, they were found guilty. They not only put them in jail, but the mother, Michael McDonald's mother, was allowed to sue the KKK, and they bankrupted the KKK. So, like, you can do that. I mean, these organizations are funded, folks. I mean, maybe they're funded more than, a local KKK or some kind of regional chapter of the KKK, but it doesn't matter. They can't be funded forever. I mean, you hit them with these huge judgments every time they incite something like this, or one of their members does something like this. It'll think about how many incidents we're already talking about. I mean, you're dealing with case after case after case after case. If they're going to continue to do it, they keep getting hit with these judgments, and eventually there's no way.
You can be involved proactively. You can get injunctions against targeted organizations and individuals before the event occurs. Right? You can say, here, they've made this threat, they've made this threat, they've made this threat. And then you've got a different easily attachable legal remedy if they do anything. If they simply step on the property, they violated a court order, they can be civilly and criminally prosecuted. And like they did in the January 6th cases incorrectly, you can take the same theories they used and apply it to the left correctly, such as terror enhancements, political violence enhancements. So there are ways in which to deal with this systematically and institutionally, as well as societally and culturally.
Yeah. Well, tell people we're way over here, brother. Way over. Tell people where they can find, where they can follow you, what you got coming up. This was a good start. It was a good start. Yeah,
absolutely. And continue to send intel and information if you have any insights out there about other things that we can highlight and find. And before we go out there before Richard goes out there with the poll and the data, want to make sure this is good. But and continue to support, and thanks for everybody who did it. I mean, again, it's you, individually making your contribution. If it's a dollar, it counts, it matters, it's worth something. So what you do in sharing the links. If you didn't have any, that was great. So thanks to support the big data public polling project that continues to make sure we get accurate information and intel on this. And we'll continue to upload a lot of legislative proposals, policy proposals, other information as this will be part of our political freedom section at 1776 Law Center. Continue to support it. The only reason why that information was ever made available to Charlie Kirk, to get to Trump and Kennedy, to make all that possible, was because ordinary people stayed active, stayed engaged, stayed involved, and did so in a positive, productive manner. Because that was always Charlie's message. That, I come from East Tennessee, and if someone took me out, my kinfolk here have a different approach.
Me too.
Yeah, and people the same way. But there's a lot to be said for the Charlie approach, and I have tremendous respect for him as an individual. And I will not disrespect his legacy by encouraging anything other than a productive, positive, the best of the Christian tradition approach to what has happened here. So so you can get all that intel information, food freedom, medical freedom, political freedom, financial freedom, all of that as well. Well, Amos Miller's case, other cases, legislative policies, ways you can do Open Records Act or FOIA Act. All of that information we're going to be putting up at 1776lawcenter.com. And again, a big thanks. But the biggest achievement 1776 Law Center has had to date was the MAGA MAHA coalition that only happened due to the accuracy of Richard's data and the exceptional political diplomatic skill of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
So I'll be forever grateful to him. It was an honor to get to know him as a human being, and we'll work diligently to respect his life and legacy and what we go forward. And that's what 1776 Law Center is going to try to do.
I couldn't add anything more to that, Robert. That was perfect. All right. Well, all the best, guys. I will see you soon, Robert. Thanks as always, folks. The links are in the description below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you like the video, to like it, put a little like below, and of course, share far and wide. All right, Inside the Numbers. I'll see you on Wednesday. Send us, like Robert said, I'll just reiterate this one more time. Thanks for funding the project, of course, but also, you know, send us if you come across any studies you thought were noteworthy. Send them over to us. You can go to either Robert or I's X's or our locals, and you can share it on the locals page, or you can do a support request. That'll send it to us as well. Or if you're watching the next video or something and you find something, just drop a link in the chat and we'll be able to check it out. Don't forget to hit me, you know, a little at me so I see it. All right. With that in mind, I'm out, guys. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks for watching. All the best.